said. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. Well, welcome to Thursday. Thankful Thursday is what we like to call it. And we have a thankful sound effect. Hit it, buddy.
You got to be more thankful.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. You're a gentleman and a scholar.
We thank you so much for this bountiful harvest of Domino's, KFC, and always delicious Taco Bell.
Have you said thank you once?
Thank you.
I love that sound effect. That's good. All right, I'm thankful. By the way, somebody else I'm thankful for is JP pushing buttons on the board. Hey, buddy, how are you?
I'm thankful for you.
Thank you. I'm thankful that you're thankful.
And I'm thankful for that.
There you go. It's Thankful Thursday. We're glad you guys are with us too. So yeah, we got a great show laid on for you. Coming up at halfway past hour number 2, halfway through hour number 2, Butters and Lee. Thursdays are the day we do Butters and Lee. They'll be both on the line with us, pinging questions back and forth, seeing where the chips may fall. Special guest coming up, beginning of hour number 3, Attorney General Steve Marshall, who is the Attorney General for the state of Alabama, has been the chairman of the Republican Attorneys General Association nationally, is also now running for the U.S. Senate in Alabama. He'll be on with us at the beginning of hour number 3, so stand by for that. And then I still got a triple dipper, so hit it, man.
The Triple Dipper. 3 stories you've got to know.
That's right, the Triple Dipper, 3 stories, 3 themes, if you will, that you got to know as we run today's show. First out the gate, I'm calling it, remember Project 2025? All the rage, all the angst, all the drama. Well, I'm calling this Dems Project 2026. That's where we are. We're starting to see it. Are they going full-blown socialist? Never go full-blown socialist. Well, they apparently are. We're going to talk about Dems Project 2026. That's number 1 on the Triple Dipper. Number 2, where merit goes to die. It's amazing to me that we are still watching the level of DEI hires that are actually doing things and then doing them really badly because they have no merit. They didn't earn their position. They should not be where they are. Yeah, I'm talking about places where merit goes to die. Have you seen the police chief for Washington, D.C.? Case in point. Where merit goes to die, that's number 2 on the Triple Dipper. Then number 3, I just called it give them no quarter. Give them no quarter whatsoever. The Trump administration is doing what it can right now to make our streets safer in Washington, D.C. It's done it already in L.A. It's got other things happening on the southern border. We're talking about what's also going on in Cincinnati. Listen, I'm just saying this. Right now, what you're watching around the nation is U.S. attorneys are being engaged. You've got also the fact that law enforcement is being bolstered. And all said and done, the Trump administration has determined that crime should be given no quarter. And I am for that. So we'll have that as number 3 on the Triple Dipper. Give them no quarter. All right, let me jump on into today's Rightside Way opening monologue. I'll remind you guys that attorney Stan McDonald, partner at the law firm of Wilmer and Lee. He is a 30-year veteran in the practice of law in North Alabama. Stan McDonald is not only a good lawyer, he's a longtime conservative. He's a sponsor daily of the Rightside Way monologue, and I'll tell you more about him here in just a few minutes. Okay, so there's an article out that I read just this morning on Town Hall by Katie Pavlich. And in the write-up, she details President Trump's plan for making D.C. beautiful again. Notice I didn't say just safe. Not just safe, beautiful. This is about more than just stopping crime. It is. It's more than about stopping crime alone. It's about restoring quality of life that has been missing for the 700,000 plus people who live in our nation's capital. Look, under Section 740 of the D.C. Home Rule Act of 1973, the president has the authority to step in for up to 30 days to assume operational control of D.C. security. That's the legal grounds for the Safe Streets initiative that Trump has instigated in D.C. That's the operational premise, if you will, for his surge of federal law enforcement and National Guard troops to quell the out-of-control gang violence and the rampant crime in our nation's capital. And yes, Democrats are having a complete Trump derangement fever dream over the whole thing. But if you will notice, the mayor of D.C. has chosen not to challenge it. And the police union in D.C. has fully endorsed it. You know why? Because they live there, they work there, and they want the help. But as Katie Pavlich pointed out this morning in her article, this is bigger than just safe streets. You see, Trump wants to actually renovate Washington, D.C. He wants to make it shine. He wants it to be a jewel again, a shining representation of who we are as a nation. In his recent address at the Kennedy Center, Trump went there. He talked about making DC both functional and beautiful again. In his comments, he said this. Here's his quote. He said, "We're going to redo roads. We're going to redo the medians, the pavers. We're going to take all the graffiti off. We're going to have to remove the tents and the people that are living in our parks. We're going to be redoing the parks and the grasses, all of it." Well, during a briefing at the White House Tuesday, Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt, she revealed some of the options that are being talked about for all these homeless encampments. Her quote was, she said, 70 homeless encampments have been removed by U.S. Park Police. There's only 2 homeless encampments remaining in D.C. Federal parks under the National Parks jurisdiction. And the removal of these 2 remaining camps are scheduled for this week. All right. So the Trump administration apparently wants to address infrastructure, cleanliness, homelessness, and public safety. In short, what the president is talking about is quality of life. The big, beautiful plan, if you will, is about making DC a place that people want to thrive in, not just survive in. And it brought back some memories to me, I'll be honest with you. Let me tell you about it. In 2004, I was an Army major doing my second tour in the global war on terror. I was in central Baghdad attached to an infantry battalion under the 1st Cavalry Division during a pretty crazy time. We got mortared, we got rocketed on our small fob near the old Iraqi Olympic complex downtown. Happened all the time. Car bombs, IEDs, direct action conflicts. I participated personally in multiple cordon and searches, combat sweeps, targeted raids. There was a book that was written about my battalion. That book that I highly recommend is called The Devil's Sandbox by a guy named John Bruner. And it tells the story of our 1 battalion standing up under withering conditions in hostile places like Baghdad's Risafa and Adamiyah and Sadr City districts. We dealt with Iranian-influenced Ba'ath Party loyalists, the Shia uprising of Muqtada al-Sadr, and al-Qaeda in Iraq. It was a bona fide combat zone, and I served among some heroes. But in the book, The Devil's Sandbox, my name is in a section that might surprise you. You see, I'm specifically mentioned in a section that dealt with trash and city services. You heard me. Airborne Ranger Phil, and they quoted me yelling at garbage men. You know why? Because part of my job in the midst of all the other combat ops we did was to help restore quality of life to the people of Baghdad. So yeah, I would patrol late at night. I'd participate in raids on bad guys. And the next day I'd supervise removing massive building-sized piles of rotting trash from the streets of the city that were causing stench and disease. The images you've seen of Saddam's statue being torn down during the invasion, that was Ferdo Square. And that was part of my area of operations. I personally oversaw the restoration of that square to remove all the filth and the graffiti, and I did the same in multiple other sites around my AO. I also personally interacted with the Iraqi National Archives, which was located in my area of the city, to try and help them get back online and restore their historical records and set their history aright. I did everything from the reestablishment of schools, parks, sewage, trash removal, clean water, gave out school supplies to kids, and then I went and rounded up more bad guys and got unexploded ordnance off the streets and rushed through the doors of a Target building at 2 a.m. to find insurgents. Why? Because we knew it was about quality of life. That's why. We knew that safety was only part of what made Baghdad safer. It may sound crazy, but people who have clean water and are not living in filth and have a little pride in their community and don't get shot at, they tend not to become insurgents bent on killing you with a car bomb. Trump knows that. That's why he's bent on doing more than just stopping bad guys. He wants there to be a quality of life for the people of DC that makes them all proud of where they live and gives the world the best possible view of who we are as a nation when they come to the capital of the free world. Yeah, so if you love a place and you call it home, right? Great. But you got to choose to make it better. You got to look at the whole picture. You got to determine to expect more out of your elected officials. City services should actually serve the people. It's not too much to expect crime to be under control, water to be clean, streets to be free of potholes, your kids to be able to play in the parks without wondering whether drug addicts are over there in the bushes. I have a friend I was talking with recently. I've told you about her before. She and her husband moved here from sunny San Diego, California. I asked what made her move from a place that they had lived in for so many years. She said 2 things: freedom and cost of living. She said that when the realization came that she and her husband had reached the ability to retire, they recognized that the level of restriction and taxation on life out in California was such that they could pay their bills, but they wouldn't really be able to enjoy their hard-earned retirement. So they loaded up the truck, hitched up the boat, filled up the cars with gas, and headed to Alabama. She said they really thought about putting a sign on the back of the U-Haul that read, "Leaving California." And look, they're not alone. Another couple in my church moved here. And as an attorney, I did a closing not so long ago for a man who moved his entire business here from California. And he bought a multi-million-dollar home with cash, so you know he had resources. But he literally said, I've got to get out of there. That state is taxing me to the ground. Yeah, so welcome to Alabama, where your rights still mean something. Property taxes are lowest in the nation. Freedom is more than just a word, and quality of life is real, my friends. It matters. It does. Look, I've lived all over the world. There's no place I'd rather be. My family has deep roots here in Alabama. The military has had us travel quite a bit, but I've lived in Germany, England, Kansas, DC, Mississippi, and here in Alabama, I've lived in Huntsville, Mobile, Gadsden, worked in Montgomery. I've served and visited multiple other countries, and I've come to appreciate what's here. I graduated high school at Grissom up in Huntsville. I went to college at South Alabama, Mobile. I got my law degree in Birmingham. I met my wife here. My kids were born here. And I'll be up in DC tomorrow for another CNN gig. But if someone came along and said, hey, we want to take Rightside Radio nationwide, we'll pay you like a Sean Hannity salary, the first thing I'd ask is, can I broadcast from Alabama? Is it possible for Alabama to be better? Yeah, 100% yes. We got a strong base to work with, though, stronger than most. And yes, I get frustrated at the politics and the politicians. I mean, I used to be one, I can say that. But I'm also glad that we are in the position of being a more conservative state on a regular basis, as opposed to just desperately trying to find conservatives. But all of that sense of home I just described, that's not just built on sentiment and memories. That's not just a heartstring thing. That's not just sunny skies and unicorns. This is a place where, for all the warts and the blemishes that I rant about sometimes, I still know that quality of life is better here than it is in so many other places, because quality of life matters. And Donald Trump has figured that out. That's why he's not going after just making the streets safer, which is also key. He's also making sure that the people of that city know he's got their back, and that he will do things, and he will take care of things, and he will do all he can to improve that quality of life. So all said and done, yeah, I know why I live here. It's partly because there's family and there's a sense of familiarity that I have here in Alabama, but it's also because I've seen so much else of the world and our nation. And I know what we've got, and I know what we can be. And I think that's the driving factor for what President Trump is now doing in DC. That big, beautiful plan, it's about way more than just reducing crime. It's about ensuring a quality of life that makes people want to thrive there. So ask yourself, why do you live here? It's a real question. In the meantime, do not forget that what we're talking about in Washington, D.C. is about building quality of life. We tried to do it in Baghdad. Surely we can do it here in our own capital. And that's a wrap for the Right Side Way. Yep, I could see one of my friends, Allie Mathis, already texting in. She remembers that story. But yes, we're watching right now as that whole thing that I knew was a top-down directive in Baghdad. We're watching it play out right now in our streets in Washington, D.C. Make the streets safer, fix up the quality of life, make the people feel like they're secure, and guess what? They stop shooting at you. It's kind of a thing. Phil Williams, Right Side Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. Say this, I love stories about one person taking a stand. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm all about the team effort, about the ability of a group to band together and get great things done. But there's much to be said about the grit and determination of the one person who takes a strong stand in the face of opposition, like just even by themselves. Like a piece I ran across the other day, a story about one veteran who just wanted to fly his flag. And by the way, that was not just any veteran. That was a man by the name of Van Barfoot, a legend who decided that the HOA for his neighborhood did not know how to find their backside with both hands. Listen, Van Barfoot, on May 23rd of 1944 in World War II, near Cyrano, Italy, that same Van Barfoot who had in 1940 enlisted in the U.S. Army, he set out alone to flank German machine gun positions from which gunfire was just raining down on his fellow soldiers. Van Barfoot. He proceeded to single-handedly take out 3 enemy machine gun positions and returned with 17 prisoners of war. If that weren't enough for a day's work, he later took on and destroyed 3 German tanks that were sent to retake the machine gun positions that he had just cleared. That earned Van Barfoot, who retired as a colonel after also serving in Korea and Vietnam, Van Barfoot got the well-deserved Congressional Medal of Honor. But later in life, Barfoot made news again in a quiet Virginia neighborhood. His neighborhood association took issue with how the 90-year-old veteran chose to fly the American flag outside his suburban Virginia home. It seems the HOA rules said it was okay to fly a flag on a house-mounted bracket, but for decorum, items like Barfoot's 21-foot flagpole were just simply unsuitable. Well, Van Barfoot, the Congressional Medal of Honor winner, he had been denied a permit for the pole, but he put it up anyway, and he was facing court action unless he agreed to take it down. And then the HOA story made national TV. And the neighborhood association rethought its position and agreed to indulge the aging hero who dwelt among them. His words, "In the time I have left," he said to the Associated Press, "I plan to continue to fly the American flag without interference." As well he should. And oh, by the way, as well he had earned. And if any of his neighbors had taken a notion to contest him further, they might have done well to read his Medal of Honor citation first. It seems it indicates that Mr. Van Barfoot wasn't particularly good at backing down. It's a great story. And it was also a big deal, but small in comparison to the one that I'm about to tell you. Let me start by saying, or asking, what if I told you that your opinion not only did not matter, but you were prohibited from even sharing your opinion in any way, like any way at all? No Facebook posts, no town hall meetings, no letters to the editor, no calls to Rightside Radio, nothing. Your opinion was forbidden. In fact, if they wanted your opinion, they would tell you what it is first. Some of you may be thinking that you're feeling that way right now, but you're not by a long shot. In fact, your voice may be your greatest weapon. It doesn't have to mean you're always right or that your resume is the strongest or that you have some amazing pedigree or some advanced diploma from an elite university. The voice of the average citizen is still one of the greatest forces for freedom anywhere in the world, especially here where the argument exists that the freedom of speech is an actual right, not a privilege, but a right in our Constitution. So before I go any further, let me be straight up. If you're told that your opinion is out of order, unwanted, unnecessary, or that you should go sit in the corner and just be quiet, well, then you have a decision to make. Do you go away and not make a sound that can ruffle a feather or two, or do you speak up knowing that the founding fathers took this very question into consideration? They decided, the founders did, that the very first amendment to the U.S. Constitution, the very first one, should preserve the right to voice your opinion. Look, I say don't go quietly, even if it means taking a one-man stand. Now, let me also be clear on something. I kind of alluded to it yesterday. The fact that you can speak out doesn't mean that you always should. And no, I'm not crawfishing here. What I'm saying is there's a lot to be said for having the wisdom and the maturity to know when to bridle your tongue and when to just let her rip. And once you speak, you need to be able to ably defend your opinion. You need to be able to back it up. Don't go quietly, but don't go off half-cocked is what I'm saying. Now, having said all that, let me tell you an amazing story about an amazing man. His name was Watchman Nee. Watchman Nee. I don't know if you've ever heard this story before. I told it once on the air, I think a few years back. But the whole story I'm about to tell you is true. And there needs to be a feature-length movie about the life of Watchman Nee. But it bears repeating how this one man stood and he changed the lives of millions. Watchman Nee was a Chinese citizen born in 1903. This was in the pre-communist era, and Christianity was grudgingly accepted as part of society, with missionary schools being really common in certain parts of China. Watchman Nee, whose birth name was Nie To Shang, he became a Christian in 1920 when he was 17, and he immediately began making waves in Chinese society. Over time, he wrote numerous books. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Just saving the world one soundbite at a time. Hey, I told you that the monologue is brought to you every day by attorney Stan McDonald, and yes, it is. So yeah, attorney Stan McDonald, partner at the law firm of Wilmer and Lee up yonder in Huntsville. 30-year veteran in the practice of law. And Stan McDonald is a great guy. Listen, I know him well, and he's somebody who is not just a good lawyer. He's a great conservative. He's been in the mix, in the fray, in the trenches, if you will, for quite some time as a warrior for things that right-side ruffians care about. So attorney Stan McDonald, though, he has represented his clients in literally thousands of real estate transactions over the years. He knows how to represent you in any local, state, or federal court. I like to always say, if Stan McDonald's on your side, you're going to have no greater friend, and likewise, your adversaries would have no greater foe. So I'm going to tell you how to reach him because you might want a lawyer in North Alabama. And by golly, Stan McDonald's there. So yes, Stan McDonald, law firm is Wilmer and Lee. He's an America First family man. Here's his phone number, 256-479-3020. That's Stan McDonald, 256-479-3020. And tell him you heard about it on Rightside Radio. And oh, by the way, no representation made that I would ever advertise a bad lawyer on the show, especially one who would in any way diminish the capacities of Stan McDonald as your attorney. All right, we're gonna move forward here. I got several text messages. Text lines are open, 833-687-4448. That's 833-68-RIGHT. Text it. Tell me what you're thinking. Allie from Athens, she remembers I had told a little bit of that story before. Actually, I told an advanced version of that story once before. That whole thing about trash was called Operation Oscar. I named it.
Yeah, I remember you said that. That's a great name. Yeah, it's very good. Big props on that one.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. But yeah, Operation Oscar was our effort. I mean, listen, when I say there was trash on the streets of Baghdad, I don't mean like a little bit. Baghdad stunk. It was just, and there were piles, like there were piles of trash that were like building size. And I'll tell you why, because it was turned into complete anarchy. The garbage men had stolen all the garbage trucks. Yes, they had stolen all the garbage trucks. They were using them on their own. They were going around to the wealthier neighborhoods, taking bribes to pick up trash, taking the trash, dumping it wherever they wanted to so they go back and pick up more. They didn't carry them to landfills. They were dumping them under bridges. They were dropping it in the Tigris River. They were kicking it out the door in the poor neighborhoods. I mean, you're talking about actual garbage trucks like you and I have over here, but they're driving around the city, picking up only if you will pay them out of pocket, and then dumping it wherever they felt like. And it was awful. And so I actually came up with this scheme to round up the trucks, and it involved luring them in under the belief they would get a reward. And I got them in the gate with a platoon of infantry blocking the doors. We locked them in. And the book has me quoting saying, a recent poll said that Baghdad is the filthiest city in the entire world, and it's your fault. And just shaming their Arabic pride.
I can hear the garbage workers now when they realize that you got them.
There was a little of that. I had one truck missing, and I found him later. He was actually in the green zone working for Americans with a stolen truck. And so there's this whole scene where I've got my weapon out and I'm dragging the guy out of a garbage truck under a gun with a gun pointed at his face. And it was just, every day was an adventure, man.
Yeah.
All right, I got text messages. I got stuff. We're going to jump right in. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. Found a non-denominational church that focused on meetings in people's homes and small groups. The name of his church was loosely translated as the Little Flock, but it grew. And it was not really that little when you took it in its totality. At one point, it was estimated that upwards of 1 million citizens of China had adopted the Christian faith, and of those, 10% were members of Watchman Nee's Little Flock. When the Communist Party came to power in 1949, religion fell out of favor, and like many others, Watchman Nee was deemed suspect, and his opinions were just heresy. He became a target of the Chinese Party's government, and at every step, he maintained his faith, and he spoke about it openly nonetheless. In 1952, Watchman Nee was arrested and imprisoned, and over the next few years, in a series of kangaroo courts, he was eventually charged and convicted with conspiring to do damage to the Communist Party, sentenced to 15 years in prison with labor for the purpose of reform and re-education. Except it didn't work. You see, Watchman Nee would not be quiet. I was told by someone that at one point, the party officials in charge of his imprisonment, they actually had to switch out guards every day because he kept leading his guards to Christ. So they would send in a new guard, and Nee would once again lead them to faith in Christ, and then he'd have to send in a new one. In 1967, Nee's sentence was due to be over, but the Communist Party refused to let him go. Without further sentencing, he was deemed to be too dangerous, so they delayed, and they delayed for 5 more years, even though he had finished his sentence. Watchman Nee finally died in prison in 1972. And you might think that sounds like a story with a sorry end to a difficult life. But his legacy, man, the legacy that came from speaking out, that legacy is said to be the root of over 10 million Chinese Christians who trace their faith back to the ministry of Watchman Nee, according to statistics compiled by the World Christian Database. Over 3,000 churches worldwide have used his teachings. He wrote 62 books. He was honored by the U.S. Congress in 2009. He was honored in March of I think 2023 by the Museum of the Bible in Washington, D.C. My point is this: if you believe in something that you've committed to with a deep sense, whether it's a matter of faith or principle or ideas or culture or whatever, it's not enough just to shout words and walk away. There's no time in a world filled with social media posts and 24/7 sound bites for people who are just so shallow in their beliefs that they can't defend them. You've got to become a student of what you believe and be able to not just say it, but actually explain it. And if you're ever questioned, then be able to dialogue about it. And if you're offended, be able to counter the offense, but do so with a reasonable response. And when you're told to be quiet, you give strong consideration to speaking out anyway. Liberal arguments, they often defy reason. They defy science. They defy the idea of faith, but they will shout those arguments nonetheless, and they will shout even louder when you don't back down. But when they are truly faced with someone who has the strength of their convictions to match the statements that they're making, they often don't even know what to do. So I say, gear up, study up, and speak up. Liberals are demanding that we remain silent these days. I don't intend to go quietly into the night, and you shouldn't either. You need to be like Van Barfoot and fly your flag. And never forget, there's 10 million Chinese Christians who are glad that Watchman Nee never stopped speaking up. I believe the interview we just had with Mike Durant, author of In the Company of Heroes, the pilot who was shot down in Black Hawk Down. He became a national icon, an international icon really, as images of him being held captive in Somalia were transmitted around the world. The way he tells his story, though, is as amazing as his story. So sit back, enjoy your time, hear about things that you're going to think about for the rest of your life after this discussion we're going to have with Mike Durant on the Just Right podcast. Yeah, let's do a show. 1, 2, 3, hey! Hey, Mike Durant, thanks for being here today.
My pleasure.
Well, it's my pleasure, and I'm honored to have you. And listen, I'm going to run through just a quick intro of who you are so folks knew who I got sitting across from me. All
sure.
Right? Mm-hmm. Some of this is going to be unpacked in more detail, but I know for a fact you were born in New Hampshire, but you call Alabama home, have for a number of years. 22 years active military. Mm-hmm. First enlisted, I think, in 79? Weren't you a Spanish linguist?
I was.
Yeah.
And don't ask me to speak Spanish. They taught us to, the school that I went to, the focus was to just be able to understand it, not speak it. So I can still understand a little bit, but I'm not a very good speaker.
Did some intercept work down there in Panama, right?
I did.
Yeah. Hey, all you Rightside ruffians out there, you are listening to Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. Just covering down on some major ground across the southeast U.S. of A. Y'all, I'm talking about this show. This show goes from like Huntsville back on over to Chattanooga, and from Tuscaloosa back on over to Gadsden, and all the way down to that lovely little village on the plains we call Auburn, straight across the line from there to what we now call Fort Benning, and then big old patches of North Georgia and Mississippi, all thrown in just for good measure. And that's just radio. That's just all y'all that dial in on the radio every day. Then there's all y'all in the whole wide world going to the World Wide Web every single day, live streaming the show, looking inside the studio on the cameras. I'm telling you, we can see it. We know you're there. We got people out there on Facebook and X and Rumble and YouTube. And oh, by the way, our website, rightsidemedia.org. And then there's all you podcasters that catch it after the fact. Listen, the bottom line for us is this. We know you're there. You mean the world to us. We can see it. And the only reason why we do what we do is because of you. So thank you very much for being there. All of you. I'm going to get a few text messages real quick. Brian from Decatur, what's he doing? Is he texting? And then it came in. Okay. Brian from Decatur says, let's try this again. What burns me more than anything is people moving from Democrat-controlled states. Every time I see a California or New York tag, I pray it's a rental. It might be a refugee, though. It might be a true refugee for freedom. You don't know. I mean, but I totally get it. And I tell you what, I know there's a lot of people that are concerned that the influx to Huntsville, because of bringing in government employees from D.C. and everything else, that the influx to Huntsville is going to purplize our politics in Huntsville. I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. And I don't think it has to happen at all. In fact, what I really believe is going to be interesting, there are going to be some who are excited because it's a new venue. They can buy a house. They can afford a house here. They can do things they could. There's others who are going to come here with a little bit of fear and trepidation just to keep their jobs because they don't want to lose their retirement. And they're going to get here and go, wow, I had no idea. And then there's some who already know and they want it out of the city and they can't wait because rank and file members of the FBI are, generally speaking, kind of like the military. They tend to have a more conservative bent. If we were bringing in thousands of people from the Department of Mental Health, I'd say we might have a bigger problem. But that being said, I really do believe we have an opportunity here to grow our strength as a state. And it's going to be incumbent upon us to give them reasons not to vote left. That's all there is to it. And if they choose to, that's still democracy. Democracy is about us not just getting votes. It's about us earning the right for the votes. So stay on it, man. Stay on it. Rightside Radio will be doing what it can. John from Huntsville says, Phil, spectacular monologue. And is there nothing you haven't done? I'm sure there is. He said, he said some very complimentary things. John, thank you very much. He said also, did you hear that the 35 Union Pacific train cars derailed in a Texas town? I did not. By the way, JP, explain to me how your mediocre Braves managed to score 9 runs in 1 inning against the Mets last night. Did they really? 9?
I got nothing.
Fair enough. Jerry from Decatur says, great monologue, Phil. The American way has always been after we whip an enemy nation, we offer a hand up and make them our friends. See Japan, Germany, and Iraq for examples. Too bad Afghanistan never had a chance. What a waste. Airborne. Yeah, indeed, it is. Now, I tell you what, Afghanistan did benefit. I mean, like there's some things, like you can look at what's called the Ring Road. There was no paved road for getting farm to market in Afghanistan, with the exception of certain like limited places. But there was a thing called the Ring Road, which was like a big circular road that ran around the length of most of Afghanistan. And I'm pretty sure we paved that bad boy. And I remember going to with special forces to inspect a bridge that had been blown early in the invasion in northeast Afghanistan that separated the northeastern province from, basically the mainland, if you will, across the Koksha River. And we rebuilt that bridge. I can think of airstrips that have been built. So they've got some infrastructure. But I'll tell you right now, the Taliban are Neanderthals. They've probably torn half of it up already.
I was about to say, I think Joe Biden ruined it being a good thing for them.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's kind of hard to enjoy quality of life when your women are being slapped around and put into a burqa and told they're not allowed. By the way, the latest thing out of the Taliban is women's voices are not allowed to be heard out of the house. In other words, they have to speak in hushed tones in their houses now because of the risk of their voices being heard outside. It's just, Joe Biden.
Yeah.
Nofre from Lexington says, what? Oh, okay. The guy, okay. Yeah. There's 2 texts. He said the guy that was, that threw his Subway sandwich and hit the federal agent is or was an employee of the Department of Justice. Pam Bondi fired him and Judge Deneen hit him with a felony assault on a federal agent. His name is Sean Charles Dunn. He's 37 years old. I saw that. What a stupid thing.
The video is hilarious.
And then he takes off running.
Yeah.
It looks like a Saturday Night Live skit.
It does.
I'm watching this thinking, is this like some influencer just trying to get a few Instagram clicks? But
the fact he worked for the DOJ is what's even more embarrassing about it.
Yeah, and what the heck, man? You got law enforcement just standing there. They're not doing anything. They're standing there. And he walks up and like throws an entire Subway sandwich at one of them.
Yeah.
And then takes off running like a girl. Just like a girl. Of course, I'm just looking at him overall, and there's nothing much impressive.
No, there's not. I don't know how he got working for the DOJ in the first place.
He was probably like a clerk.
And if I was standing by, I've been outraged. Dude, that's a perfectly good sandwich. Come on, man.
You had double meat and double cheese on there. All right, we're going to talk about something here for a few minutes. So, do you remember Project 2025? Project 2025. What was that? Well, so if you're not familiar, during the campaign season, the Democrats needed something to glom onto. Well, the Heritage Foundation, which I love, by the way, the Heritage Foundation, extremely conservative policy organization, much like on a national scale that the Alabama Policy Institute is, where I used to be on staff here in Alabama. So The Heritage Foundation came up with a plan. It was called Project 2025. It was their wish list. It was the things that they believed that if a Trump administration took office, that we should see put in place. It was like, stuff like ending the Department of Education and moving toward school choice, and reigniting the energy sector, and controlling the southern border, and enhancing military readiness, peace through strength, all that. Guess what we're doing? All that stuff. However, it was considered controversial because it also had things like pro-life in it and just scary stuff. Scary. Well, the left needed something, so they made Project 2025 the big taboo. Well, we know how you are, you and your Project 2025 ilk. I mean, it was like all the scream for a while. It was ridiculous. It was absolutely the most overblown, ridiculous thing. And yet, I have to wonder, did anyone notice that at least we had people on the conservative right making a plan, making a proposal, working on policy? Do we recall anything like that out of the Kamala Harris campaign? Maybe there's a cricket sound you could play right about now. Did we have a plan from the Democrats? I'm sorry, apparently not. You know what they had? Abortion. We need more abortion. That was the whole campaign. No Trump. Abortion. And that's not there's no policy. All right. Well, I'm starting to wonder, though, is it possible that what we're seeing in the Democrats right now is that they really do have a plan, and the plan was just to do everything badly? Sort of like the border security. Mayorkas says, Senator, the border is secure. The border was never secure. We can look at it and tell it wasn't secure. Why would you say that? I became convinced, I think most of the world did, that the intent was to leave the border open. The absolute, not just like different policies, and they have a different way of doing things, and they just don't like being tough on the border. No, they didn't want a border. They wanted to just say ollie ollie income free, and the human wave come streaming across the Rio Grande. So is it possible, though, on a broader scale, that what we're looking at right now is the Democrats literally saying, you know what, we're going to screw with crime statistics, and we're going to be there again to open up that border if we get a chance. And we don't want energy because we want to make sure that it's hard for people to be able to travel around. So we want range anxiety on electric vehicles. And we want, you know what we want? We want socialism. Socialism. That's what we want. You know what socialism really is? The government in every aspect of your business. I mean, your personal business. I mean, your business. I mean, your church business. I mean, I'm talking about, just walking around every day. It's all about the government. That's what I believe is Project 2026 for the Democrats. I think that they are moving so far to the left that you might as well just go ahead and say that Mamdani in New York is the new icon of how they want to do business. So apparently, get this, there's actually a group called the Democratic Socialists of America. They held a convention this past weekend. They did. I've got an article here from local news that cites some of the things that were going on. There were members of Congress there. Did you know that? There were. And I'm gonna jump into this when we get back from the break. But I'm going to tell you right now, the Democrat socialists who met, I will give them props on this. They said the inside words on the outside. They just went ahead and went there. They're all in, and they believe that they are the future of the Democrat Party. I'll tell you about it. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. I got family ties there. My grandfather was post commander. It was at Corzall. I think it was one of the years ago. Became a warrant officer in '83. Which I still don't understand the warrant officer mafia. I never knew whether you guys got saluted or what was going on with that. But anyway, warrant officer in '83, flight school, Fort Rucker. 5 years later, you were selected for the elite 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment, the Night Stalkers, which we're going to talk about in a lot of detail. 3 distinguished flying crosses, Bronze Star with a V device, Purple Heart, and fairly rare in modern times, a Prisoner of War medal. And and then you retired as a CW4. Am I right? Chief Warrant Officer 4.
That's correct. 2 DFCs.
2 DSCs.
Yeah.
Well, okay, just 2. Got your undergrad and your master's from Embry-Riddle. Is that right?
That's correct.
And built a successful defense contracting firm, Pinnacle Solutions, which you've retired from now. And you're married, and most importantly, you've had 6 kids.
We do.
Got your own basketball team.
Yeah, with some bench.
Well, good enough. Well, hey, thanks for being on the Just Right podcast. Appreciate you.
Again, my pleasure. I do always enjoy time spent with you. I think, we certainly have some common history, and you get it. And it's kind of nice to talk to people who get it, because when you talk to people who don't get it, it's a little bit frustrating, and you got to get drilled down into areas you feel like it's tedious, but with you, that's not the case.
Well, I appreciate that, man. Thank you very much. And we'll just have to make sure we don't slip into acronyms or something like that.
Well, that is easy to do, and then you can lose a lot of folks that way. But I've gotten pretty good at trying to avoid that.
Well, let me ask you this. I want folks to get to know who you are as much as your story, because your story is amazing. I've got your book sitting right here in the Company of Heroes. I read it years ago, and I've had a copy on my shelf. In fact, I think I told you before the show, my son nabbed it. He's stationed down at Benning, so he's got it with him, so I had to get another copy for today. But let me ask you, how did it start with you in the military? You're a kid in New Hampshire. Why the military? I mean, what happened there that said, that's where I want to lead my life?
So, I characterize myself as a blue-collar kid. I mean, working parents, we were certainly not poor, but we weren't really well off either, and never saw myself as necessarily college material. I did fairly well in school when I tried, but I wasn't necessarily motivated to go to college. And I lived in a paper mill town, and a lot of people went to work in the mill. And there's nothing wrong with that. We need people to do that. That's, if that's what you want to do. But I just couldn't see myself doing that for the rest of my life. And when I was about 14, and it's about the time you start thinking about, what am I going to do when I get out of college? Doesn't keep you up at night, but, you start pondering that kind of stuff. I had a major turning point in my life. I went on a helicopter flight with a friend of the family.
No kidding.
His name is Joe Brigham. He was a warrant officer in the National Guard. He also had his own business. And as I found out later, I wasn't the only young teenager that he ever did this with. He took a few of us up that he wanted to try to inspire, and it absolutely impacted me. I mean,
No kidding.
we're flying over Mount Washington, which is the highest mountain in the Northeast. It's 6,280 feet. We're basically hovering. The aircraft was kind of primitive by today's standards, I guess I would say. It was kind of a glass bubble. If you remember the MASH helicopters, similar to that. And it's like you're just floating in space. And I'm looking at, like, again, I'd flown on a small airplane before, but never anything like this experience. And I said, you could actually do this as a job? And he says, yeah. And he said, you could, if you join the Army, they'll send you to flight training, and you could do this as a career. And I'm like, okay. If this is a possibility for me, yeah, I'll take it. And ultimately, when I got old enough, I went and talked to the recruiter, and you probably heard the joke. A recruiter's line because their lips are moving. They have a quota. They're trying to fill certain slots.
Sure.
And there are programs that are available sometimes, and sometimes they're not. And he told me, sorry, but flight school program's not available for people coming right in off the street. You're going to have to join the military first, and then you can apply for flight school afterwards, which is all correct. But I didn't really know whether he was telling me the truth about, could I have applied to go directly to flight school? But either way, and another smart thing I did, and I'm not the smartest person in the world, but I have made some good decisions along the way, is I spoke to someone else about joining the military. And I think you and Jared had talked about this, or he did. And you don't want to just
And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. Just making common sense like a superpower. All right, so I'm back in number one of the Triple Dipper, the Dems Project 2026. So I got an article here. I pulled this off of local KOMO News out of Chicago. So the article points out, this is Dateline 2 days ago. I hold it in my callous former paratrooper hands. So the article points out that the Democratic Socialists of America, do you know there was such a thing? The Democratic Socialists of America?
I actually didn't.
It's imaginable, but I didn't know I'd ever heard of them.
I thought the Democratic Party and the Democrat Socialists were kind of just one and the same. But
well, you may find that to be true.
So,
but they held a convention. The Democratic Socialists of America held a convention in Chicago this weekend. Delegates declaring now is their time. 1,200 members were in attendance, including celebrating Zohran Mamdani's New York City mayoral primary win, while also claiming that was not an abnormality. It's just a sign of what's to come. That's their statements. That's their belief. Saying things like, Zohran shows that Palestine is a winning issue. Wow. That socialism is a winning issue. And they said, we are now the dominant democratic force in America, and the reign of the Democratic Party is over. So you see what's happening here. The left is moving further and further to the left. What you might consider the old school, your daddy's Democrats, your granddaddy's Democrats, are not the Democrats of today. Representative Rashida Tlaib, a member of the squad, known for being a complete heel, was there. She gave the keynote address. Member of Congress at the Democratic Socialists of America, the keynote address. Some of the people in the audience are actually waving flags of the Communist Party. Her words, they don't have any other choice. Our movement is not going anywhere. We're just getting started. The article also cites the fact that there was a poll that was done by the AP. Just like in the recent weeks, 35% of Democrats polled are dissatisfied with their party. If you've got members of Congress claiming that socialism is the wave of the future, while giving the keynote address at the Democratic Socialists of America convention, after a poll indicates that 35% of the Democrat base is dissatisfied with their own party, I'm telling you right now, socialism is not just a part of what they believe, and they want things like entitlement programs and stuff like that. Now, we're down to the point that they are starting to lean more and more to Marxism. They are all the way in on the idea of socialized virtually everything. How much time have I got? Am I good on time right now?
Got about 5 minutes.
Let me do this. I'm going to call up clip one. I'll do it before the break. So there's a new ad, by the way, that the National Republican Conference put out. Republicans put this out. Those of you that are watching on the live stream right now, you'll be able to see it. Those of you on the radio will be able to hear it. But I want to play for you what Republicans are trying to point out. Now, I'm aware this is a campaign season ad. I'm aware that sometimes things are said in the legal parlance, we call it puffery. All that means is, a little bit of braggadocio. There's nothing in this that is not true. Go ahead and play it.
2026. Hakeem Jeffries' plan to remake America. Raise taxes on working families. Impeach President Trump.
Donald Trump must be removed from office.
I'd like to impeach the bastard right now.
Open the border. Restart the invasion.
Abolishing ICE, which I support.
It's about defunding the police.
They riot, they loot.
We are unapologetic about our socialism.
The abolition of private property.
To chip at it aggressively until we can unravel the whole system.
They want to turn America into a socialist, crime-filled dystopia.
We're going to take back America, and it starts today.
Are you going to let them?
It's an amazing ad. I think it's very effective. To me, it's one of the most effective things you can do is not just point out the things to be concerned about, but use their own words against them. What you heard in there were constant clips from people like Hakeem Jeffries and AOC and other members of the Democrat Party who were clearly evidencing that this is their intent. They're going there. They're not even trying to hide it anymore. Gone are the days when Democrats, tried to pretend that they just had a heart of compassion. That's why they do things like give away free stuff. It's not about that. Not anymore. It's about building socialized everything so that they can be in charge. Because once you're dependent, guess what? They've got you where they want you. That's exactly what happens.
I'd say Bill Maher had George Will on, who is a conservative, writes for the Washington Post.
Yeah.
And Bill Maher is very much against Mamdani, and he was saying to George about how catastrophic and awful it would be if Mamdani gets elected in New York. And George said, I think every 20 years we need to have a full, upfront, and honest attempt at socialism so we can all be reminded how it doesn't work.
Yeah.
So
I saw that.
I hate to say it, but like maybe New York the citizens need to figure out for themselves. This has been tried over and over and over and over again, and it's always failed. But I don't know.
So on the one hand, I totally get the argument George Will was making that people should have to face the consequences of their own thoughts, actions, and inactions. And if they don't ever face the consequences, they won't ever fully realize. At the same time, this is not just a single small town community in America. This is the crossroads of the world. This is where the seat of this is Wall Street. This is New York City, one of the biggest cities in the nation, in the world. And it's still to this day, it's, for all its warts and blemishes, it's a huge chunk of America in a single municipality. I don't want to lose it to a Mamdani.
Oh no, I'm not happy about it either.
Oh, not at all.
But I think I'm just at the point of like it's going to happen, so maybe they'll learn. But I don't know. I think it's not going to work out. I think everybody's fully aware of that, except for New York, apparently.
I thought De Blasio was bad. I thought De Blasio was just absolutely one of the most incompetent mayors who ever was elected to office. He was also weird in personal life. He was just a strange dude, and he made so many bad mistakes. And the people of New York voted in Eric Adams, who I had a little bit more high hopes for because of some of his moderate, like on crime. He used to be a police officer, all that kind of stuff. And now we're going right to Mamdani. And I think what's going to wind up happening is if Mamdani's elected, it's not going to be that the people of New York will have to wait and see, because all the ones who don't want to be there will get out.
Yeah, exactly.
And basically it's going to be like Escape from New York with Snake Plissken. And it's going to be just a massive debacle as we watch it slip back into the days before Giuliani got elected and took back the city of New York. More on this. Dems Project 2026. I got a few more pieces. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back.
In the military, right? There has to be a purpose to it. I mean, serving the country is noble and it's great, and we need people to do that. But for you as an individual, you should also be thinking about what can I do with this in the life after the military.
Sure, absolutely.
And I was offered to go to, as we discussed before we got on camera, the Spanish language school in Monterey, California, to be in military intelligence. And how marketable is that? I don't know. But, I was convinced that, well, they'll send me to school for a year to learn Spanish. I'll be a military intelligence analyst. That's probably something
sounds sexy.
Worth something, yeah. and then I can possibly apply for flight school. Okay, we'll go ahead and sign this. And it was one of those cases where I had gone off to talk to the recruiter on my own, and then came back to the house. I'd already signed the paperwork. My parents had not been informed at all, and they were kind of shocked, right? But I said, I think this sounds like a pretty good deal. Let's give it a try. And then I was stunned by the reality of basic training. I just,
no kidding.
I wasn't mentally prepared for it. I just wasn't.
But who really is?
Yeah, I guess no one is.
That's back when drill sergeants could be drill sergeants.
Yes, I mean it was quite a lifestyle change, is all I could say.
Yeah.
I mean, you're living in an open barracks with 20 guys that you've never met before from all over the country. They treat by design. They treat you like crap, right? I mean, it's probably not as bad as some of the other military training that goes on, but it's going from a high school kid with long hair and concert T-shirts on and didn't care about anything except girls and some sports. This is a radical lifestyle change. And I at that point was thinking, I have made a mistake. This is not what I thought it was going to be. And I don't know what I did think it was going to be, but it certainly shocked me to the point where I was thinking about, I don't know if I can get out of this, but if I can, I need to.
Well, was there anybody in your life like you had this warrant officer from the Guard who gave you the flight in the helicopter? But did you have any military in your family? I mean, was there anything watching it as you grew up? Like my family's been generational Army, so my son watched 3 generations before him do stuff, and then he wanted to do it.
Right.
But did you have anything like that?
They were in the Guard. My uncles were in the Guard. My father was in the Guard. But to me, that's different. I mean, you just sort of see him, go once a month. Not that the Guard isn't a great, organization, but it's just
it wasn't a full life,
right? And you still live at home. Unless you get deployed, obviously. But it was. I wasn't prepared, and I was again to the point where if I could get out of this, I need to, and was convinced that I should stay by the drill sergeant, and I did. And at that point, got like super motivated. I got like the PT award, physical training award of the whole class, and in basic training, I scored the highest, and just really got motivated that, okay, if I am going to do this, I'm going to do the best job that I possibly can. And then I went on to language school, advanced individual training, where they teach you how to actually do what you're on contract to do. And then I went to Panama, and that's where my assignment was, and I'm at that point, probably an E3 enlisted private, and, working in a military intelligence unit. And coincidentally, run across Manuel Noriega in the parking lot.
In the parking lot?
Because he was an MI guy.
Was there a food truck and y'all were standing in line together or what?
No, but he was a military intelligence guy. So I was in a military intelligence unit. And at the time, he's only probably a major or whatever. But he was already pretty well known. And he showed up, and he obviously very easy individual to identify.
You were there later,
and then years later we go back and bag him. But anyway, so I'm kind of enjoying this military intelligence job. And then one day I'm sitting on the beach, and I know this is a really long answer to your original question, but I'm sitting on the beach, and these 3 Hueys fly low level right over the top of us with shooters in the back and their legs out the door, and I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot how much I really want to do that. And so it sort of re-energized me. I applied for flight school, and I got in. Had I not gotten into flight school, I probably would have separated from the military, because I did like it, but I felt like there was something more. But getting to flight school was then a game changer.
All right, so you got to flight school. So warrant officer candidate. Become a warrant officer, W01, I guess. Go to flight school as a W01?
No, what's different today is that you actually get commissioned as a W01 pretty early in the pipeline. Back then, you didn't get it until you were done flight school. So you go through as a warrant officer candidate. And what it does is it changes your date of rank, is what it really does. I mean, you're still treated like you're an idiot, whether you're a W1 or not, but your data rank changes.
You guys, I made the joke earlier about the warrant officer mafia. Yeah. Y'all are as warrant officers, you're technicians, you're technical specialists. You have niche, basically skills and knowledge, but you're also this kind of in between that folks who are junior in rank or junior as officers always look at you like, I don't know what to do with you right now.
Right.
Can I tell you what to do? I'm not sure.
Yeah.
And but y'all kind of ride in the middle a lot of times, it seems like.
And we're the ones that keep everything running.
And you are the ones that keep everything running.
Yeah.
There's the backbone of the Army and the NCO Corps, and then there's y'all that keep things running.
Right.
But all right, so you became a warrant officer. You went to flight school down at Fort Rucker, which is now called Fort Rucker again soon, it looks like.
Yeah.
But coming up, and we were talking about your raisings, so to speak, up there in New Hampshire. We're going to go forward into your story here in a few minutes. But what about being raised, where you were, who you were with, whatever else? What do you think instilled things in you that you wind up needing later on? Like, was it sports? Was it family? Was it faith? What did you see in your life that you looked later on like, I'm glad I had that because it built me up?
Yeah, faith is certainly part of it. Now, my faith journey had its ups and downs, and the lowest point probably being post-Somalia, when looking back at what happened there, based on what we were trying to do, in my mind, there was no justification for the horrors that occurred there, and I couldn't couldn't accept it because it was horrible. I mean, there's not a lot of things I've witnessed that were as bad as what happened there. And we were there for all the right reasons. So anyway, but faith is certainly part of who I am, and it's come full circle. I think playing sports helped a lot too.
Was it hockey?
I played hockey. I played football. I mean, I wasn't great, but I played. And you learn about working and teamwork and your role.
The issues, and like the dude just said, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Welcome to hour number 2 on a thankful Thursday. Thankful Thursday. Listen, I gotta touch base real quick on something that I'm going to take a total aside here. I meant to mention earlier in the show to those of y'all in our Chattanooga audience. Man, you guys have been through it here lately. I understand there was some serious flooding up there. I've not seen it personally, but JP, I know you said your dad was there and saw some of it. Like epic rain, right?
Yeah, he was up there working actually when it happened. I think they got about 7 or 6 inches of rain in like an hour. So it is pretty bad. He actually saw somebody unwillingly drive into a part that was flooded. I guess they couldn't see because it was nighttime and had to be like pulled out of it. He was there the next day and said a lot of it had dried up. I'm looking at videos now of some areas that really got flooded pretty bad, especially Chattanooga too, being at the base of all those like.
Was it residential areas, downtown areas? Where was that?
Right where I'm looking at videos of the main flooding, it's like residential areas, not downtown Chattanooga. Yeah,
wow,
it looks pretty bad. The videos I'm seeing.
Wow. Well, anyway, blessings on you, our Chattanooga audience. We appreciate you. And man, that's some epic rain right there.
Yeah.
All right. Prayers out for Chattanooga. A couple of quick text messages. Jeff from Indiana just texted in. Jeff Rose says, I told the guy in D.C. before he threw the sandwich at the cop, don't do it. You'll be in a substantial amount of trouble. Get it? Substantial. Jeff with the dad jokes. He also talking about Maxine Waters says, heck, Phil, open waters? Wasn't even getting it. I think he's voice texting here, and I'm not sure what's happening. I think he means Mayorkas. Wasn't even getting illegals in fast enough. They had to fly a bunch of them in. Yeah, that's exactly right. Cameron from Decatur says, I got 2 texts here or 1? Yep, 2. Says during the early 1900s, between 1900 and 1920, over 130 mayors in the United States were socialists. The Socialist Party of America, founded in 1901, saw significant growth during this period with a peak membership of 113,000 in 1912. Okay. Says, I guess we're going straight to Wikipedia here. He says, specifically, Pew Research Center survey shows a decline in positive views of socialism since 2019, but about 36% still view it positively, while a majority, 60%, view it negatively. I got news. If 36% of America views it positively, that's not positive at all. That's bad. Think about how close the margins have been on our elections. And then if the Democrats want to put somebody in their primaries, if 36% of their base is, because I guarantee you none of that 36% is going to be Republican. If 36% of the Democrat base is leaning socialist, then holy smokes, what does that do to the voting block and the ability to run? And it's going to be sometimes geographical. I don't think you're going to see near as much of that in Alabama Democrats as you would like in, say, a New York City Democrat. You won't even see much of that in upstate New York Democrats. But in places like Portland, San Francisco, San Diego, Oakland, Chicago, St. Louis, New York City, Boston, Baltimore, I mean, they're gaining traction in a big, big way. And those are major metropolitan areas. By the way, the commerce, more than just the commerce, even the politics out of those major cities, as much as we don't want to admit it, actually impacts. They're trendsetters. Those are bellwether areas. Something that comes, if New York City goes down, we all go down. And we have to scratch and claw to stay up. So I say all that to say, caution. They may not be in the majority. My point in saying all this is they are trying to be. And they avidly believe that they have reached a point where they are mainstream now. And in their words, this is their time. But what kind of things might you expect to see if you had a socialist in office? Well, you got the whole Zoran Mondani thing. I mean, he's definitely going to be the case study. Because if he gets elected, and right now all indications are he probably will, but if he gets elected in New York City, We're going to be watching policies be put in place that are going to be probably very much next level of this Project 2026 Democrat socialism. I mean, he's an avowed socialist. He doesn't even pretend. He's not trying to hide it. He's out there. One of the things he wants to do is have a government-run grocery store. And I don't know why. You know what? I do know why. There's a lot of low information voters out there. There are a lot of clickbait information voters. If you vote on clickbait, then you know what? You're going to get clickbait. That's all you're going to get. If you are literally just attracted to the shiny object and clickbait's all you do, and you don't go below the scenes, then guess what you're going to get? You're going to get a clickbait candidate. And that's what Mamdani is. Is he good at campaigning? Sure. Clickbait's not hard. By the way, being a hard worker does not mean you're a good worker. He is doing a whole lot of social media. He's doing a whole lot of, grab and grin and making videos that are trendy. And that's all cool. But you know what it is? It's shiny objects. It's clickbait. And the clickbait is drawing in people because we have a clickbait culture. We have been so conditioned through social media and TikTok and having, short segments on TV shows, and gone are the days when I'm amazed, to be honest with you, I'm amazed at how few people even try to get their news from actual news sources. I realize you can get good opinion on news and you can hear news, being talked about, but there are so many people that don't even bother to source the things that are being said. My point in saying all that little rant is that's exactly Mamdani. Mamdani himself is saying, well, I just really think that what we need to have is government-run grocery stores. While right down the way, he's got an example of one that failed miserably in St. Louis. So I've got a sound clip. I'm going to go ahead and pull up sound clip number 2. This one comes from local news in St. Louis. And this particular story is very telling. Those of y'all that are live streaming, you'll be able to see it. Those of y'all that are just listening, just listen in. But for those who can't see it, just hear me say this. The pictures of this store as it's being videoed are of empty shelf after empty shelf after empty shelf. It is not even staged. The reporter showed up and just walked into the store. And here's what you got.
This Sunfresh at 31st and Prospect is struggling. This is the first section people see when they come in. There's barely any produce. A lot of the coolers and shelves around the store look the same way, empty. So shoppers have been asking us, if the store isn't closing, then where is all the food? A rotten smell comes through the door, and anywhere you turn, you'll see products that need to be restocked. No hot food or deli.
I watch people walk in and walk out.
The grocery store has received financial assistance from the city, but has been unable to keep those shelves stocked in an area that in the past has often been referred to as a food desert.
Around here, a good thing don't last too long.
And it will impact a lot of people and a lot of families.
The city owns the Linwood Shopping Center. A nonprofit operates the grocery store.
Think about what you just heard. They didn't bother to dig in a little bit. I'm going to tell you right now, the city has put in millions of dollars for that grocery store. It's a city-owned grocery store, and there's nothing on the shelves. Did you hear the one part where she says you walk in and the smell of rotting food hits you as you walk in the door? In a grocery store.
I saw that the city spent $18 million total keeping it propped up.
$18 million. Mm-hmm. And there's nothing on the shelves. So where are the millions going? What's it being paid for? This is what happens when socialism takes hold. This is what happens when the government runs everything. It's price fixing. It's like no choices. You take what you can get if there's something to get. And I'll tell you, the reality of all this is where the Democrat Party is heading. We're not looking at the party of Joe Manchin. I said it yesterday. We're not looking at the party of Joe Manchin. We're not even looking at the party anymore of Chuck Schumer. That man's just like, he's just entrenched because of his age and seniority. That's all. The people that are running the show are leaning more and more socialist, and they're the ones giving the keynote speeches at the Democrat Socialists of America convention. What you got?
Well, I was just going to add, I think I said this before we talked about Mamdani. He's a response to a generation that can't afford to buy a home, is having high grocery expenses, is really struggling financially for a lot of different reasons. A big one that comes off the top of my head is inflation from extreme government spending. But the answer to that is not socialism. But I think the GOP needs to do a better job of not just trying to fix the problem, but providing alternatives, because socialism is like the low hanging fruit. And when you got liberal, theater kids in New York City who are struggling financially, and they see Mamdani, who's charismatic and comes in and he provides these answers that sound great, but obviously they're not great. But I don't think the GOP is providing a good enough alternative. Like, hey, that hasn't worked. How many times it's been tried? I have actual real solutions that can fix the problem. I don't see a positive alternative from the right that is being put up to Mamdani. I think either way, Mamdani would win, but I think you see Omar Fateh in Minnesota too, who's also a socialist.
Oh my gosh, that guy.
So these guys are reactions to a younger generation that's struggling. But to counter it, we have to actually come up with alternatives instead of being like, can you believe Mamdani? Like, obviously he's crazy. But I think the real answer long term is the GOP has to provide better solutions.
Well, here's the thing though. And I don't dispute what you said, except that I will say that the same people that complain, well, we just don't have enough stuff, and so I need more stuff because I don't have any stuff, and I need Mamdani to give me stuff. They're wallowing in what that same attitude created and perpetuated over the years. So those socialist tendencies, those policies that created high taxation and low return, those policies that created no accountability and soft on crime, those are the things that Mamdani is saying he'll only fix by doing more of the same, and they're buying it.
Yeah.
And so at some point, it's hard to fix stupid.
Yeah.
You look at it and go, if you just vote for the same thing or more of the same thing or the same thing like exponentially times 2 or 3 or 9, I don't know how I can fix your stupid.
It's a definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over.
Or in this case, doing it times 2. It's really something to watch. The Democrat Party has created a self-licking ice cream cone. They create the problem, they perpetuate the issue so that they can tell you that they're the solution to the problem they created. And then they create more problems, and then they come back with more solutions that they're going to give you to fix the problems they helped create again. And that whole self-licking ice cream cone just keeps going around in a circle. It's unreal. We'll take a break. I just realized what time it was. We'll take a break right now. We'll come right back. Text me what you think. 833-687-4448. That's 833-68-RIGHT. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back.
Organization to make the overall team a success. And those things to me are invaluable if you can learn them when you're young. So I think a combination of all those things.
Yeah. Good enough. It's amazing sometimes what we draw on later. You don't even realize you've got it now. I can remember things as a kid that I didn't know that I grumbled about, and then later on you realize that instilled something.
Yeah.
So you went on though to do some pretty amazing stuff. So in the world of aviation, Army aviation, the 160th, which you're wearing the shirt right now.
I am wearing the shirt.
You are wearing the shirt.
By design.
Night Stalkers. So the 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment. I remember when I first got in, we called them Task Force 160.
Right.
But you guys were the premier Special Operations rotary wing guys. And how did you... I've never heard, what is like, I know what selection is like to go to Ranger School. I know what selection is like to go to the Q course for Special Forces. But there's a selection process to go to the 160th. Am I right?
No, yeah. It's very similar, actually.
All right, so tell me about that.
So when I first found out about the unit, I was in Korea. And at the time, it was still what we call a black organization, meaning nobody publicly acknowledged that it existed because it had just been formed in the aftermath of the attempted rescue of the Iranian hostages.
Right.
That's why the unit was created, because the analysis indicated that, look, you can't just throw together a bunch of assets and go try to do a complicated mission like this. It's not going to work. And so they created the unit, and there was going to be a second attempt, but most people don't know that. But the unit started training long-range missions in the desert, all the things that were required to go prosecute that target. And we're pretty much getting to the point where they were ready to go, and then the hostages got released. But the smartest decision maybe ever made by our government was, okay, well, the hostages are released, but we still need this capability. So let's keep the organization intact, fund it, obviously because everything runs on funding, unfortunately. And today, I mean, it's just an amazing organization. It's gotten more amazing over the years. So when I found out about it, it was, like I said, it was still black. And it's like people whispered about it in bars, and it's like, wow, I read Tom Clancy books. That sounds really cool, And I was getting assigned to Fort Campbell, which is where the headquarters for the 160th is. So I'm thinking, all right, I go to Fort Campbell, I walk across the street, knock on the door, say, hey, I'm interested, what do I need to do? And I made the mistake of signing into the 101st Airborne Division before I went and talked to the 160th. And by doing that, committed me to 2 years in the 101st. But in the end, best thing that could have happened to me.
Got a lot of stick time doing that.
I did get a lot of stick time, and in Korea, I'd flown medevac. And medevac is, there's great experience. You got to make a lot of decisions on the fly, quick response, bad weather, and you're flying by yourself. I was 22 years old. I'm flying real world medevac missions, as the pilot in command.
No kidding. Yeah.
You mature fast or you die. Yeah. That's basically how it works.
And others die with you. Yeah.
Yeah. And that was great experience. But what I didn't have is multi-ship, meaning like formation flying, not a lot of, I had a decent amount of night vision goggle time, but not a ton. And you really need a lot of night vision goggle time to do well at the 160th. So getting that extra 2 years on 101st really helped me out. I went to the instructor pilot school while I was in the 101st. So now I'm an IP. I got much more time. I got a lot more formation flying experience.
Yeah.
And then the process begins. So the assessment, again, it's a volunteer organization. So everybody that goes there on the pilot side is a volunteer. And then you have to go through an assessment, a lot like some of these other special units that you're familiar with. It's a psych eval, it's a swim test, physical fitness test, flight eval, board, all that stuff. And it happens in about a 3 or 4 day period. The board's always the most dramatic because you show up with your dress uniform on, you go in there and a bunch of people look like they want to hit you. And they ask you very difficult questions and try to put you in uncomfortable situations. And, there is no right answer. They just want to see how you answer the question, what your makeup is. And that just begins the process. So then you enter green platoon. If they decide to take you, green platoon has changed quite a bit, but by the time you start to end, it's about 10 months. Where you're going through, again, land navigation, life-saving, physical fitness, just, all the things that, soldiering in general require at a high level. And then you start basic nav, where you're navigating in the cockpit with a map and a compass. Because even today,
And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid conservative, just plain right. Just saving the world one soundbite at a time. Joe in Tennessee says, Mamdani's rise is due to liberals created by the indoctrination like Randy Weingarten. Okay. Indoctrinators like Randy Weingarten. Yeah, the teachers union is amazing. Dave from Capshaw says, troubled Kansas City grocery store has closed despite nearly 18. So they actually closed now. Okay. Wow. Goodness. What figures? Is that a surprise? Hey, let me go to the phones real quick. Line one, Robert from Athens. Hey, Robert, how you doing?
I'm doing good, Phil. You doing all right?
I'm good. What's on your mind?
Well, I tell you, I got a question for you.
All right.
How far does the American people allow this socialist, communist crap to go on without fixing it?
Well,
now, this is not right, and it needs to be fixed. And we don't need to let it slide no further than it already is.
Well, I would agree with that. Now, are you talking about, was that a rhetorical question, or did you want me to actually say, how far do we let it go?
Well, yeah, how far do we let it go before we fix it?
Well, I mean,
do something about it. I mean, Lordy, I know people vote them people in,
Yep.
You know, it's the Democratic way, but there's no way these people can get in those offices, swear to uphold the Constitution, and be socialist and communist. That just don't work.
It doesn't really work, and that's the thing is what we've got to do a better job at is we've got to do a better job of messaging why it doesn't work. We've got to keep calling out the St. Louis grocery stores. We got to keep calling out the inability to get anything built in California because of all their regulatory burdens. We got to constantly do this. Otherwise, we're going to be saddled with it over and over again because they'll be able to perpetuate the lie that it actually works. Hey, Robert, thanks for the call, man. Appreciate your time. Yeah, that's. I mean, it's great. I totally agree. I think Robert is right. I mean, we don't want it to go any further. However, it is not incumbent upon us to stop the vote. It's incumbent upon us to channel or to challenge the messaging. That's where we really got to be. I mean, kind of to your point a while ago, we've got to provide the alternative. We've got to say, there's a better way. Let me tell you why, but have a good way. And we've got to do a better job of, I use this analogy periodically on the show. I think I did in a monologue the other day, as a matter of fact, that the Apostle Paul himself, talking about Christianity, he said, I have become all things to all people that I might win some all the more. He did not change his message. He changed his presentation of the message. He related to his audience. He went where they were. He identified with their sense of things. And he spoke to it without at all changing his principles or defeating the gospel. He presented the gospel in a way they could hear it. That's what we've got to do a better job of.
And that's why I am also worried about AOC, because AOC and Mamdani both, they're young and they know how to message with social media and such to the younger generation. And I mean, there was a clip of when they had a bunch of the candidates for New York City mayor on a debate. And one of the questions was, if you could take a trip to a foreign nation, where would you go? And they all went down the line, this country, this country, this country. And then they got to Mamdani, and Mamdani was the only one that said, I don't want to go anywhere. I want to stay here in America and fix it. And you may not think it's a lot, but that right there resonates with the younger generation a ton. So whether you believe he's lying or truthful or not, he said the right answer. Out of all of them up there, he said the right answer. So I think the right has got to figure out how to message better, like you said.
Well, I think one of the things that we did see in the Trump campaign did a great job of employing, like Trump is now he uses Truth Social a lot now, which is his own, but Trump is a social media animal. He wasn't afraid to get out there and use it. Trump also went where the people were, and Trump was not afraid to be populist. And there's people on the right side of politics who say, "Well, populism is real." You know what populism is? It's the things that people want to talk about. That's what it is. So there's times when policy has to be overarching and have a broad base that is bigger than populism. But you can't ignore populism, because all that is popular stuff that people want to talk about, and you got to give the right side of that story too. All right, I think we're done. We're taking that to a break. We're coming right back with a round of Butters and Lee. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back.
I think the priority is, hey, look, you need to know how to navigate, even though you got multiple systems in the aircraft that'll get you there.
That's right.
When I was first in, GPS wasn't even in the aircraft yet.
Not at all.
The global positioning system, I'm assuming everybody knows what that is. But so we really did rely on a paper map and a compass. But you have to, hit targets in the middle of nowhere at night with very limited resources, and be able to do it every time, plus or minus 30 seconds. And it's not as easy as it sounds. I mean, depending on where you're trying to go, that can be a pretty difficult task.
I can just tell you, it's hard doing it on the ground.
Yeah.
Of course, you guys have a different terrain markers from up there, but you're also flying by it a lot faster, so you're having to keep track of the terrain.
Pretty quickly. Yeah.
Exactly.
So it starts with the planning process. You got to pick the right checkpoints, in order to help you find your way. And then you learn the aircraft systems, because the aircraft have different systems than the conventional force does. So you got to learn how all that works. Then you got to learn the special tactics, like things like fast rope maneuvers and aerial refueling now.
I was going to ask about that.
all of that stuff is all unique to the unit. So you have to learn all that and demonstrate proficiency.
Was
Ship
Black Hawk your
landing.
airframe at the time too, right away?
Well, it was for me. It's different now because it's a pretty expensive aircraft to fly to put all those hours on it. So now they actually start out in Little Birds, which are the Hughes 500s, basically, for all that basic nav stuff, and then they move to the advanced aircraft.
Okay.
So again, all that takes about 10 months. And then again, kind of like Jared said, then you arrive at the unit and you're still nobody because you're the FNG, basically, if anybody knows what that acronym stands for.
It's the one we won't say, but yeah.
There are people that won't even talk to you. You have not proven yourself. You just because you got through Green Platoon means nothing, right? You have to then make your way through the progression, basic mission qualified, full mission qualified, and then the ultimate level is flight lead.
And I'm assuming Green Platoon actually weeds people out too.
Oh yeah.
So you have some that are there and they're not there the next day.
Oh, you lose people in assessment, you lose people in all phases of Green Platoon, and then you lose some people once they get to the unit because either the deployment schedule is too much for them or they just aren't performing the way you thought they were going to perform, even though they got through all that. When the rubber actually meets the road, sometimes it doesn't work out.
Was it of any benefit to you at all that you had your Spanish language skills that were already there?
No, probably
in some special
not.
operations, they want a language skill to be attached to it, but is that necessary at all in aviation?
No, not really. Right. No, I think in that case, it probably didn't help me a whole lot. The more you know about the more things, it's obviously going to help you in life, but I can't think of a specific example where that helped me out.
So you guys, you said you had some flying with nods and night vision ahead of your time going to Green Platoon and getting into the 160th, but you guys fly with it a lot when you're in the 160th, right? Is that one of the things that differentiates the 160th capabilities, aside from the airframe having some other capabilities too? But is flying with nods a big part of what y'all do?
Yeah, certainly at the time. I would say now there's maybe the focus is broader. Across the entire military.
Yeah.
But the unit was pioneers in night vision goggle flight. Our guys were the ones that came up with the idea. When I went through flight school, we actually flew with what are called full face goggles, meaning they have a frame around them where you cannot see anything other than what you see through the tubes. And we did flights during the daytime with filters on the ends of the tubes where the instructor can see, but you can't, because obviously that's the safest way to learn how to fly night vision goggles. But it's really difficult for the person actually flying under those conditions. I think I was actually the last class to ever fly full face goggles and do day filters. I'm not sure, but we made a transition right around that time. But it was guys at the unit who said, "This is stupid. Cut the frame off," right? Because they're originally made for ground use, not air use.
Yeah.
So they cut the frame off and they made them flip up, and there's been evolution after evolution.
They got the big cushion pad around.
Yeah,
and they're like
the full
like
face
big.
ones. Yeah. They didn't last very long, but.
Hey, all you Rightside ruffians out there, you are listening to Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. Just covering down on some major ground across the southeast U.S. of A. Y'all, and talk about this show. This one, goes from like Huntsville back over to Chattanooga. I'm talking about from Tuscaloosa back over to Gadsden. All the way down to that lovely little village on the plains we call Auburn, straight across the line to what we now call, once again, Fort Benning. Benning, big old patches of North Georgia. Parts of Mississippi. Listen, that's just the radio too. Just the radio. And then there's all y'all in the whole wide world going to the World Wide Web, tuning in on places like X and Rumble and Facebook and YouTube and our website, rightsidemedia.org, and live streaming the show every day. Live streaming where you can even see inside the studio. And then all you podcasters who catch it after the fact, listen, the bottom line is this. All y'all, wherever you catch this show, the fact that you do means the world to us. The only reason why we do what we do is because of you. So thank you very much. All right, there's some other people that we're thankful for on Thankful Thursday, and they are folks who do things in the background that just make us better. And so I'm going to go ahead and turn my attention to calling the roll on what we like to do at halfway through hour number 2 on a Thursday, looking northward. That diva of pontification, that woman with an attitude who also brings in an opinion that she can usually back up with facts. That would be Lee from Huntsville. Are you there?
I'm here.
Yay. I'm glad. All right. Lee's on the line. Looking right here more close, but he's sitting on clean feed. So that would be silky smooth voice Butterman. Are you there?
All right. I am here.
You are indeed. All right. So I'm calling it. We got a quorum. It's Butters and Lee. All right, you guys, you know the deal. We got this whole Butters and Lee thing. I ask you questions for the first round. You ask me questions for the second round. Let me find my questions. All right. So one of y'all's got feedback, by the way. But here's the first question. The left is having a complete come apart right now about Trump federalizing law enforcement in Washington, D.C. I just want to know your thoughts. Give me your unvarnished thoughts on this, and tell me this. Does the fact that he's doing this concern you at all? If so, how come? Lee, you first.
No, it doesn't concern me that he's doing this. He's the president of the United States. That is the District of Columbia, which they have, I guess, some control over. And here's the thing. The place where we celebrate the capital of our United States should be safe. It shouldn't be a dangerous dump, it should be safe. It should be, how does it look to the rest of the world where our capital is crime infested and people have to worry about having their car stolen anytime they go up there? So yes, I 100% agree. And I think he has the right to do what he's doing because it is a district and not a city within a state.
All right.
So,
chime in there, Butters. What do you think about all this?
Well, I think it's a good example of, we don't really, we take for granted the way things are. I honestly, I haven't put too much thought in my lifetime as to, well, who does govern Washington, D.C. and how that works, but it makes perfect sense. It's not a state. And it doesn't seem like it's working all that well.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
What we need to not do is sit back and go, well, I guess we should treat them like a state, but they're not. And as I understand it, they pretty much have only been run by Democrats. And I think to Lee's point, it's the capital of our nation. It ought to be a safe place. But I think a lot of this uproar is it just reeks of all the bureaucracy that's actually running our country right now. And just, oh my gosh, how could we do something like this? He's taking over. Well, that's kind of the way it's supposed to be. It's what we've had has been broken and not the way it's supposed to be. So I don't know. Those are my thoughts.
I saw something last night that said that, I'm sorry, what, Lee?
It's just control.
It is. They don't like the idea of control unless they're the ones controlling it. But I saw something last night that said that Democrats opposing Trump doing this are really saying, it's as if they're saying they support the idea of the crime more than the enforcement. That's what it sounds like if you get down to it.
Valid.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very valid point.
Yeah.
The other piece of this is they've not had home rule. I didn't know this until all this broke. Like I had to go do a little research, the kind of way I operate the show here, try to find the facts. It turns out the DC Home Rule Act was not passed until 1973. They didn't even have the ability to make their own laws and even have a mayor or a city council until 1973. But even still, in that law, Congress reserved the right for oversight and to step in if necessary, which is what we're doing.
I think that makes perfect sense. They are not the 51st state. That doesn't sound like they were ever intended to be. So
okay, but let me take it one step further. Trump did go and send the National Guard to Los Angeles. He did go and enhance the security around the federal courthouse in Portland. He has taken steps in other places that are not Washington, D.C. So the left is saying this is a clear indication of tyranny. How do you respond to that? Lee, you first.
Okay, so when he did bring the guard out to different places, it was mainly to guard federal buildings and federal installations. He has the right to do that, even in other states. But with DC, yes, the military is there, but it's not really as enforcement. It's more just as in backup and protection. Whereas he's more, I think, energizing and helping and supplying things for the DC police itself. I think that they've let DC get out of control as far as size, as far as having a police force and a mayor and all this. I think DC should always have been strictly for our representatives, our president. I think a lot of that land should be given back to the states and the people as well, because I don't think DC was ever meant to be what it is now.
Wow, so Lee just wants to go ahead and like sell off DC. That's what we're just gonna let's go ahead and Zillow. Let's go ahead and put it on Zillow. I mean, we're gonna all right. So Butters, what are your thoughts on this idea of branching out and doing it in other places? Does that create tyranny?
Well, so I will say this, so I was a Navy guy, and so I don't really know the Guard, what all training. My gut tells me, in my experience, rolling out the Guard for policing action is not, especially stateside, even if it's legal, it just doesn't seem like that's the first best option. But he may not have a lot of other options. I don't know if that makes any sense, but we're military. In my experience, we're there to break things, and we're very, very good at breaking things. But like I said, I'll defer to you. I know you've got a lot more experience on the Army side of the house.
You were Navy. There's not a Navy National Guard, so yeah, I didn't
have. So we weren't doing policing actions other than stopping pirates at sea, and that's usually pretty violent,
which is actually pretty cool. But so
I think you got to tread lightly on some of this. But I will say President Trump he's pretty good at putting on a show, and so there's a lot of effect that he gets out of this, and it causes a lot of people to talk about things and go, and maybe we should do something different.
I'll go ahead and say too that augmenting, when it comes to intervening for the purposes of saving life, limb, or property, which is the actual terminology, Title 10 of the U.S. Code allows the president to send the National Guard where necessary to, not even just a federal building, but go and secure life, limb, or property. And so he can do that in the absence of a call from the state governor like Newsom, who wouldn't do it, or LA Mayor Bass, who wouldn't do it. He just went ahead and said, fine, Title 10, I'm in. And he just went ahead and did it himself. And by the way, the calls of tyranny doesn't give back ground. He had the National Guard there. 60 days later, they were gone. And under, I think it's Article 740 of the Home Rule Act for DC, he has 30 days to surge like he's doing right now, just to quell the violence, and then he's gone. So I don't think we're going to see a problem. Hey, let's jump on question 2 before I run out of time. So Trump meets with Putin tomorrow. This is a big deal. Trump's meeting with Putin. They're meeting in Alaska, and I just want to know your thoughts, your predictions. What would you like to see happen? Butters, you first.
I'd love to see some sort of agreement come out of it that we stop the silliness in Ukraine and can move on. But I don't know. I hope they come up with some way to save face for everybody that's involved. What I expect is probably something will happen that will make a lot of people unhappy on both sides of the issue. But hopefully it's, they seem like pretty smart guys getting in a room trying to figure some stuff out. So
okay. Well, so what do you think, Lee? What are your thoughts? What do you think is going to happen? What are your predictions? What do you want to see happen?
Well, I would love to see an end to this war, this sense of killing of people. And a lot of these people, have loved ones on both sides. So it's it's terrible and it needs to stop. I think Putin will bow to the pressure, but I don't know what that looks like or what that means, aside from he's got to find a way for him to win in some ways in his people's eyes. That's just who Putin is. And is that going to be something accepted by Zelensky? I don't know. I think the Donbass region may still go to Russia. We'll see. I'm not 100% sure, but I think they need to be willing to, Ukraine needs to be willing to give up some land to stop all this.
Well, and that's going to be tough. That's a hard one to swallow.
I know.
The one thing I'll definitively say, and I'll put money on it, the left will be upset about whatever happens.
Because Trump's the one who called for the meeting.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, right now I'm already hearing, why are you even giving him a meeting? What do you mean? Why am I giving him a meeting? What a stupid question. You don't mediate with only one side, and Trump is playing the statesman here. Well, we'll see how it goes. I got plenty more thoughts on that one. And in fact, I'll be on CNN tomorrow night, probably talking about it. In the meantime, let's take a break. We'll come right back. Round 2 of Butters and Lee. Flip the script. They asked me questions. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back.
That's where it started, until somebody said, no, we need to change this. And then they came up with ideas like finger lights and lip lights and infrared lasers and infrared tracers and all these things that you can see with night vision goggles that you can't see with the unaided eye. All were, basically came from that early.
So how much of that training is done by simulators now? Do they do that?
A lot.
Simulation?
Yeah, a lot.
Yeah.
Simulators are really good. It was actually part of what I did after, I transitioned out, was working that field. And it's a tremendous cost saver and safety. You can do things in a simulator that are sometimes impossible to do in the aircraft, but certainly safer to do in a simulator. And you do it cost effectively, because a lot of what's going on in the aircraft today that are advanced is mission management. It's not so much moving the sticks around, it's pushing buttons and understanding how to use the integrated avionics. And you don't need to learn how to do that in a aircraft that costs whatever, $10,000 an hour to fly. Now, I'm not saying you don't need stick time. Okay, that's the trap that some bean counters tend to fall into. That
there's always that seat of the pants feel that
yes,
changes things.
And actually the Army has come to realize that the aircraft they've been using for primary flight training at Fort Rucker now probably isn't the best, because you're not doing enough actual stick flying. There's a lot of automated systems on board that help the aircraft, or help you as a pilot, that you're losing that real ability to fly manually.
Yeah.
And they just did a pilot program where they're going to probably change how flight school is done, because there's been a realization that we got people that don't know how to fly a helicopter. I mean, they can mission manage all day long, but if they have to actually fly a bird, they're not as good as we used to be, unfortunately.
So let me ask you this: what now? The 160th, y'all are balls out a lot. So when you're flying, some of the stuff you're doing are not the things you would do or even be allowed to do in a conventional unit. But then you're also, like you said, you were back in the days when things were being pioneered. And I swear, I think it was you told me one time about strapping a Gatling gun or something to the front of one of the birds just to try it out to see if it would work. And it didn't work very well.
Am
I right in remembering that?
Yeah, I was part of the group that created the Arm Blackhawk.
Okay.
And it's still the only place that it's used is at the 160.
All right.
And yeah, we were running with scissors. I mean, we put a 50 cal, and these things are being mounted just on what was originally intended to be a door gunner pintle mount. So it's not really structurally designed to hold, a fixed forward weapon, but we modified it to where it could. And I mean, we
had
duct
tape, a little zip tie.
Oh, plenty of duct tape. Yeah, even coat hangers. I mean, you name it, whatever it took. But it was an amazing time to be there, because you could go from sitting in the team room saying, "Man, it would be cool if we could do this," to convincing the leadership that there's some risk here, but we think we can mitigate it. Let's go try it. To then, that worked, writing a requirement and actually getting it turned into something that is fielded, and then go shoot it in combat. I mean, there's probably nowhere else in the world you could say that. And I experienced that on more than one occasion.
So what was the craziest thing you can remember y'all did and thought, man, we're never going to do that again? The one that you sit around at 160th reunions going, remember that time?
Yeah. Well, one of the most amazing stories, and I've told it many times. I like to joke that I shot myself down 5 times. And the most dramatic one, and none of it my fault, but the most dramatic one. So back to this pintle mount with a minigun on it. So a minigun is a 7.62 Gatling gun, 6-barrel. It'll shoot 6,000 rounds a minute at high rate. Okay, that is incredible. When people see video, like if you go online, you Google minigun night firing, keep in mind all those traces you're seeing, that's every 14th round. Okay, or every 15th round. It's 14 to 1 tracer mix usually. So even though it's a steady stream of tracers, there's 14 more rounds in between each one of those you're not seeing. That's how many rounds are going downrange. So we got one on each side. And the way that we fixed forward mounted them is we put this, we call it a diaper pin. It was a pin that went through the pivot, which, because, if it's a door gunner, they're going to want to be able to pivot it, right?
Right.
We have to fix that. So we put a brace to hold it vertically, and then we put this pin through the shaft it's rotating on to hold it horizontally. And then it's a diaper pin because it goes around and it has a hook on the end that connects on the end.
Okay.
Right?
All right.
Which sounds like that should be sufficient. Well, it is until it isn't. And I'm flying with Donovan Briley, who's a really good friend of mine, lost in Somalia, actually. First aircraft shot down.
And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Just making common sense like a superpower. Hey, by the way, Butters, real quick before I go back into actual question and answer time, Jim from Gunnersville just texted in and wants you to know the Navy does have a guard. It's called the Marine Corps. Dun-dun-dun.
I'm pretty sure that's just the Marine Corps Reserves there, good buddy.
Yeah, okay. What he's trying to say is
I know. Yes, I know what he's saying.
Okay, with that in mind.
I'm very thankful for the Marine Corps.
Hey, this is the part of the time of Butters and Lee where we flip the script and they all ask me questions. So I'm going to say Butters first. What you got?
All right. So why won't Hunter Biden just go away? So this is, I guess, a fun, to me, gossipy type of thing. But this whole deal with Melania Trump, a $1 billion threat. I sort of tongue in cheek say you would think Hunter Biden would shut up and quit while he's ahead. But what are your thoughts? Is Melania, does it do any good? Is she doing more damage, or is any of this kind of stuff going to actually make the Bidens go away?
No. So first of all, Melania is doing what she's supposed to do, because the things that he did say about her were egregious so badly that the Daily Beast and a couple of other news sources have already had to print retractions of the story because they realized that it was so salaciously wrong that it was inappropriate to even have published it. Because what he said is, Hunter Biden's most recent accusation is that Epstein is the one who introduced Donald Trump and Melania. And that's the furthest thing from the truth. So I think she's absolutely right to do this. Keep in mind, actually, Hunter Biden had a number of defamation cases because of all the people that were putting up the pictures of him doing drugs with, crack with hookers and in his underwear and all that kind of stuff. But those were real. So those cases all wound up going away. Which he really did. And those cases have all gone away. So he's no stranger to this. He did it himself, except that you'd think he would know better because he's been a public figure who believes he was maligned, and he's going to do this anyway. Hunter Biden is a troubled individual who we understand is in financial disarray, and he's looking for opportunities to either A, remain relevant, or B, get some coin out of it. And I suspect that if people keep offering him podcasts, he'll keep doing it, and ain't no telling. And those podcasts gain because they get these crazy comments, and they're not responsible for them because it was him who said it. So I think Hunter's not going to go away until people stop asking what he's thinking. And so
I'm just not so sure that she shouldn't just treat him like a bug that she happened to step in and her.
I think they do that with a lot of stuff, but I think in this case, it was the first lady, not Donald Trump herself. And the first lady shouldn't have. I think in this case, they had to put him on notice that that's inappropriate and it needed to be recanted. And of course, his response has already been, blankety, blankety, blank. But Before I run out of time, Lee, what question do you have for moi?
Okay. And I'd like to answer his really fast with one sentence. It's go away. Where's the money in that? That's what he's doing.
Yeah, that's a good point.
He's
See, there
just
you go.
looking to make money. That's it. So my question for you is this whole SNAP thing that's just been spiraling, you know, you saw these people putting up videos about they can't buy soda anymore, whatever. Why is it that you never see Alabama making decisive decisions like this? Or the governor coming out and saying, yeah, we're going to join this and ask for an exemption and not. We're never even close to being like out front on something, first of all. And second, the two-parter, do you think that it's because you know the soda and junk food and snacks have lobbyists too, and I'm sure they are beginning to panic at the thought of losing all that money.
Okay, so I'm going to correct the narrative on something you said.
Okay.
We're not always out front. I think we're less out front now than we used to be. And I realize that I have some sense of ownership over the 2010 class that came in and took back the State House that I was a part of. But I will tell you this, that on that very issue you're talking about, that I supported a bill that Arthur Orr, I believe, brought. We quickly identified where SNAP was being abused. SNAP and EBT cards were being abused. We could see, once we got the printouts that we couldn't get when the Democrats were in charge, we were getting printouts showing them being used in strip clubs. We were looking at, vape shops and tobacco shops and all these places that have no business taking, EBT cards. We're all using EBT cards. And then the other thing that was also crazy was people would go in and they would buy a pack of gum and they would also cash out. So they would get cash and walk away and no telling what they did with it. So it was totally defeating the purpose. And then you never knew if kids were getting fed. So we actually did away with a lot of those things and we limited where it could be used in order to ensure that it was being used in places where actual food is being bought. So we led the charge on that and we changed it, and we were one of the first in the nation to address it. That being said, more needs to be done. It's crazy. I mean, I don't want people who are poor to not be able to get a soda. The question is, how far do we govern? And we've got to get to the point that we're looking at things from a sense of totality. One of the things they got to do is get rid of the rest of the grocery tax. Like, why do we even tax groceries? Agreed. Why do we tax groceries at all? We're one of only the last few states in the nation that even taxes groceries at all. Just be bold, fellas. Get rid of it. And before you start talking about EBT cards and sodas, how about this? Stop taxing groceries. Milk and bread cost money.
Because they don't want to tax. Because Alpha's strong, and they don't want to tax certain land. You know that.
I don't know what you just said to me, but all right. Okay. Anyway, the bottom line is the music playing, so now I'm done. All right. Listen, I appreciate both of you, Butters and Lee. Coming up next, Attorney General Steve Marshall checking in. We will be right back.
We're flying. He's in the right seat. I'm in the left. Night vision goggles. We're going in a range at Fort Knox. Live fire. No dry run. We got approval to. Usually have to make a dry pass to make sure there's nobody out there, but we got approval to go in hot. So we roll in. I'm flying. I pull the trigger, and the tracers are crossing in front of the nose. And so I let off. That's
bad, by the way.
Yeah, I let off on the trigger.
The streams.
And I said, that is the worst expletive bore sight job I have ever seen in my life. So a bore sight is when you orient the weapons to where they're going to impact where the sight is pointing, right? And Donovan, in classic Donovan style, says, Mike, I think we got a problem. So I look over, and I mentioned the finger lights earlier. Finger light is just a little battery-operated LED that is infrared, so you can't see it unless you're wearing goggles. We have some that you can see. This one you could see. That diaper pin can't come out while we were flying to Fort Knox. And when I pulled the trigger, the barrel rotation caused the gun to go left. You would think the wind would cause it to go right, but the barrel rotation caused it to go left.
Force.
And it shot through the cockpit. It missed his knee by like 3 inches. He's got 7.62 rounds all through the cockpit. The windshield's blown out. glass has been, because I felt something in my eyes, and it turned out it was glass shards from the rounds going through the cockpit.
Mighty Mike.
And again, luckily, it hit. He had a armor panel on the side here, and the barrels hit the front of the armor panel, I think, but it stopped them from going any further, or it would come right through the cockpit and kill us both. And anyway, we landed, and what I like to say about this story is, this is back when it seemed like we had a little bit of authority to do things that maybe you'd get crushed for today. So I'm thinking about, okay, nowhere in the manual does it say I can't have holes in the windshield to fly this bird. So we put duct tape, back to the duct tape, over the holes in the windshield, cranked it up, and flew it back to Fort Campbell.
No,
today that would probably get you
with your finger off the trigger the whole time.
we emptied the rounds out of the weapons, but that's probably the most dramatic thing that ever happened non-combat.
Yeah.
That I can come up with, and then there were 4 more of those that are less exciting. But
no, that's but yeah, that's definitely one of those you swap over a beer and like, oh, no, let me talk the time we shot ourselves down.
Yeah,
that's
so they don't use the diaper pins anymore. By the way.
All right, so op tempo for you, you're in the 160th. Operational tempo is higher than the average unit, I would imagine, but it's a lot of come and go. What's the op tempo like in the 160th?
Nonstop.
Yeah.
Again, I was out when 9/11 occurred. I'd retired 6 months prior.
Really?
Made me feel like I was sitting on the bench and considered what I could do to get back in. But with my injuries from Somalia, I couldn't fly operationally anymore. But the reason I bring that up is just to put this in perspective. The rotation for our guys during the War on Terror was 90 days on, 90 days off. So you're in theater 90 days, either Iraq or Afghanistan, you're back for 90, then back in. There are guys who did 30 rotations, 30 in combat. And when I say combat, I mean combat.
Yeah.
They're hitting multiple targets every night. And there's just no op tempo that's more demanding than that I know of.
That's every one of the airframes.
Yes.
Chinooks, Blackhawks.
Yeah, the Chinooks were the stars of Afghanistan, actually, because of the elevation, which was a real struggle for the Little Birds and even the Blackhawks. But Iraq was pretty much more a Blackhawk Little Bird show, with certainly a lot of Chinook missions as well. But yeah, all the platforms.
Yeah, I was in my tour in Afghanistan was the beginning of the war, riding horses and stuff. But we were in the northern parts, north of the Hindu Kush, and so both Bagram and Kandahar down south couldn't get to us by rotary wing because getting over the top of the Hindu Kush was too much for most of the airframes they flew.
Yep.
And the only couple of times something happened where somebody came in from the south, I think they were flying Chinooks.
Yep. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Because it's a beast. I mean, it really is. There's some.
It's a freaking school bus with rotors on top.
Yeah, we call it a dump truck, but I love it. Yeah, it's a great aircraft.
But I've seen images of. I mean, some of those guys that fly in the Chinooks, it's amazing. They can balance on a dime. But they literally, one guy was with the ramp down in the back was hovering in the air, exiting troops onto a mud hut on the edge of a cliff.
Yeah, there's a famous picture from Afghanistan. That's probably it.
Yeah.
The front wheels are off in space, with hundreds of feet below. Yeah.
So you had some major deployments. Operation Prime Chance, which a lot of folks don't realize is defending tankers that were flagged American and making sure they're safe.
Our friends, the Iranians, who
they're in the news again.
They've I don't even know what to say about them. It's just they've been a constant problem for 50 years.
Yeah.
And it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out, because the Israelis are just to the point where they had to do something, and they did.
Yeah, and I think most of the world is glad they did. At the same time, holding their breath that they did.
Right.
But Operation Just Cause, so you were back in Panama again, and you went in with the 160th on that too, right?
Right. We did. We were there for 8 hours. So when the F-117 dropped the first bomb ever at Rio Hato, I was down there underneath watching it. It was pretty amazing.
Flying over places you've been to in the past, right?
Yeah. Some of the subsequent missions, there's where I used to live, and we're putting SEAL Team 6 in on targets around the city, trying to find, because Noriega was still on the run at the time. That our mission was to capture him. That was it.
Yeah.
And we called it the hunt for Elvis, because there was always an Elvis sighting somewhere, and usually it was bogus, but if it met the intel criteria, we'd go. And so we were flying all over the place.
And then Desert Storm also, also with 160th. Obviously, all your deployments there with 160th. But what was the mission in Desert Storm? Was it scud hunting or what?
It was, yeah. So the scuds, for those who don't recall, the concern was Saddam was launching scuds into Israel,
right,
which potentially would draw Israel into the fight, which would break up our coalition, because our coalition had Arab countries along with Western countries as part of a unified force. But if the Israelis got involved, the concern was that would fall apart.
You just said solid conservative and just plain right. Well, welcome to hour number three on a thankful Thursday. Listen, we're going to go to the phones here momentarily. I do what I can to make sure you guys have a quality introduction to people who are going to be key. And one of those people who's been key in your lives, citizens of Alabama, for years, is the man who's about to be on the line with us. Attorney General Steve Marshall has a long career as a prosecutor. He was the district attorney for Marshall County for many years, right up here in my neck of the woods. He has been the attorney general for the state of Alabama now for 2 terms, and has recently thrown his name in the hat, or his hat in the ring, I'm sorry, to be the next U.S. Senator replacing Tommy Tuberville. He's also got a long career of leadership. I would say this, he's known nationally. He's known as a guy who has been in the mix, in the fray, in the trenches on conservative issues, defending our state and other states as a leader in the Republican Attorneys General Association nationwide. So without any further ado, let me quit talking. Attorney General Steve Marshall, how are you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great. So good to be with you. Hey, I do have a bit of good news to share.
Yeah.
Just learned this afternoon that Lieutenant Derek Porch, who is the Scottsboro police officer that was shot in the line of duty here a few weeks ago, is coming home today.
Outstanding.
And I know you got a praying audience,
Applause.
and I think we all ought to lift him up in his recovery, but that's exciting news, the fact that he's getting to come home.
That is exciting news, and I'm so glad to hear. I tell you what, I don't think people understand how much the men and women in blue put on the line every single day to go out and do what they do. So I am super glad to hear. Thanks for the update on that.
No problem.
Well, listen, I tell you what, talk about safe streets. Let me take you down that road. So right now, you're looking at, and I know we're going to kind of have to mix a little bit here, but you're looking at being a U.S. Senator. You're also, though, very, very integrally involved in things related to safe streets in our nation, our state's capital. What are you thinking, first of all, about what's going on with the federalization of law enforcement in D.C. under the Trump plan?
Well, absolutely needed. And look, I mean, so we just need to look at what the community has responded by and large, other than those who want to cater to the bad guys and not the victims and those that have been harmed. It's been overwhelmingly positive. The community says we want to be safe. We want to be able to walk our streets. We want to be able to know that we can take our children out to play. You hear police officers there say we need the help, we need the backup. And I think it's encouraging that we have a president who says, I'm willing to use the authority granted to me to be able to keep our capital safe. And he's absolutely right when he shares the fact that if you cannot keep your capital to be that one spot that people from around the world can look at as a shining example of public safety and where people want to visit, then what does that say about your nation? So I'm excited about what he's doing, and I think it's going to pay dividends for months and years to come.
Well, I would agree. That's been the general premise of the way I've been approaching things on the show here. It's a surge. He's not supplanting local law enforcement. He's surging assets to their aid to augment what they're already doing. And the men and women in the law enforcement in DC have completely. I mean, the FOP up there has completely supported this. They've endorsed it.
Yeah, and so I'll give you an example, kind of more local. We obviously were engaged in an effort in Montgomery,
right,
where we needed to be able to act. And one of the ways that I knew that we had done the right thing is I was literally at a public place, and a Montgomery police officer came up to me and said, "Want to thank you for the efforts in helping us, because for the first time, I had somebody there as backup for what I was doing on my shift." And so, from a law enforcement perspective, these guys are just wanting to help. And look, if you want to know why defund the police was a bad idea, look what took place in D.C. I mean, they literally did exactly what they said they were going to do. Dramatic reduction in the force. And it shouldn't be surprising to anybody what we've seen. There's an uptick of violent crime, problems on the streets in that community, and now President Trump's going to be able to help solve that problem.
Well, and speak about it, if you don't mind, from your role as a prosecutor, both at the local and state level. My understanding is that DC Home Rule came into effect somewhere around 1973, and over time they began putting things in place like no cash bail and no mandatory minimum sentencing, and just really soft on, like, the age of 25 and below can't be tried with mandatory minimum sentences. It's just unreal. Talk to us about law enforcement from the DA side of things.
Yeah, when you pull back, the bad guys then take advantage of those opportunities. And, I'm somebody that over my career has fought what folks sort of offer under the guise of criminal justice reform. And what we've seen is the consequences of being more lenient, from backing away from proven policies. And the result of that is communities that are unsafe. Like, I go back to what Rudy Giuliani did years ago in New York City, where he said, we're going to take all crimes serious. We're not going to ignore misdemeanors. We're not going to ignore lower level offenses, because when you do that, you send a message that you really aren't serious about enforcing the law. When you give opportunities for law enforcement to do their jobs, when you give them the tools to be effective, like we were just announced a significant arrest of 23 people on drug trafficking conspiracy charges in Huntsville the other day, because we gave a new tool for law enforcement to be able to use it. They'll take advantage of those opportunities and do their jobs. But when we release the bad guys on the streets, we let them go do bad things. It's why in Alabama we've even had to recalibrate with an Ananias law to make sure that we can hold people that need to be on bond in jail to the point that we can feel like we have the opportunity to try them. We've been able to recalibrate parole hearings, as you well know, which became a revolving door of bad guys getting back on the streets. We've done good things in Alabama. Candidly, one of the reasons why I'm interested in running for the Senate is so that we can provide some of that same sanity to federal criminal justice policy as well.
Well, and I think that's absolutely supportable. And I think that I think you would certainly bring that experience to bear. Let me touch base before I leave and go into the Senate race a little bit more, and just ask you, can you tell the audience, so for those who don't know or recall, what you're hearing about Washington, D.C. is very easily translatable into what we were seeing happen in our own state capital in Montgomery. And your office has been significantly a part of assisting in forming a task force that has made a difference. Can you describe that process real quick?
Yeah, Montgomery was dealing with significant upsurge of violent crime, and very much in the same way that the President described Washington, D.C., for those outside see that as kind of the gateway. Montgomery is for Alabama. And when you're hearing about a state capital in Alabama that's struggling to deal with keeping that area safe, then you got to act. And it's not historically the role of ALEA or a local sheriff's department or an AG's office to be involved in local policing, but yet it became necessary, and we had the coalition of efforts that went out, and similar to what President Trump's doing in D.C., to be able to surge officers in the streets, to use actionable intelligence, to be able to target areas in which there had been significant issues, to be able to bring assets to the areas that were in need. And we saw a significant reduction in crime. I told you about the officer who shared with me his own personal insight. I mean, yeah. Phil, when you got people bringing you cookies saying, thank you, you're doing a good job, and that happened in our office. And so we saw pretty dramatic decrease from some of the usual players that were out there. We saw many that had outstanding warrants who not had a chance to be prosecuted yet get put and locked up in jail where they should have been. And we've seen a tangible difference in Montgomery. Now, is the problem solved? No. But are we working to try to be able to help it? Absolutely.
Well, and I think the absolutely part is the most important piece. We're absolutely taking overt steps to doing it. I hope to see that repeated in more places around our state. But let me ask you this. So flip the script here. You have served your time in the Attorney General's office. I think it's been a good run. Now you're looking at the U.S. Senate, and this is an entirely different venue. And it'd be the first time in your career that you're not prosecuting crime, in a sense. Give me your thoughts on what drove you to this point to take this role.
Yeah, I think you and I may have even talked about it months ago, that I just never felt it led to run for governor, and it made that decision last fall. I am term limited, so there was no more sort of things at the state level that I thought that I was interested in doing. And then obviously Coach Tuberville made a decision to come back, which caused me to evaluate is this a role that I can continue and have passion and be effective in public service? And interestingly, talked to a couple of my former colleagues on the AG space that are now in the United States Senate, and they said this has been, for them being an AG, remarkable training ground for the issues that you face as a United States Senator. I look back, and the things that I really sort of woke up excited about going to work to do, pushing back against the Biden administration, protecting, for example, girls' locker rooms and girls' sports. And I've talked about the work Alabama's done to really sort of wholesale change the script on this so-called gender affirming care, when we were able to expose that fraud that it was. And it just got me to understand that I had an opportunity to be able to come to DC, work on the very issues that we had gotten right in Alabama, and to make a tangible difference for the people around the country. And so Tammy and I have thought long and hard about whether or not this was the right thing to do. We feel led to be in this race, and look, whether we win or lose, it's an opportunity to be able to share a vision for not only Alabama, but for what we can do as a country. And like, I've stood in the breach with President Trump for quite some time now, including being with him in the criminal trial in DC, and look forward to having an opportunity to help continue to push forward his agenda in the final 2 years, and then continue the policies that make sense for our country.
Well, and I was going to say, and you brought it up, there was a time when I think I was sitting here in the studio, as a matter of fact. I look up on the screen, and Trump's walking out of the federal courthouse, and then you're right there in the crowd. And I thought, well, there's my attorney general. But so you've actually stood with him during some of his lawfare issues. Okay, so let me ask you this in the closing couple of minutes we have together. I've asked every candidate who's looking at this, knowing full well about your own background and the things that you're passionate about. There are various committees in the Senate. Is there any one particular committee that you're like, okay, if I get to DC, I want to make sure I get this assignment because I think I can bring something to that committee? Is there one that you're passionate about and you want to be a part of?
Yeah, I think it's 1A and 1B for me, and that's ag and armed services.
Okay.
I mean, we obviously have an economy in Alabama that's in a cultural tradition rich in agriculture. And what they have done to be able to create the Alabama that we know and love today, and invested in that for family traditions for me from back down in South Alabama. And the armed services is obviously a critical component. I mean, I think we are a veteran-friendly state. We embrace the role that the military plays not only in our state, but in our nation, and would love to be able to have influence on both of those committees.
I think that's a good fit. I think our state needs it. Can you guarantee that we'll get Space Command? Can you do that right now on the air?
I wish I could. Unfortunately, I don't have total authority as AG to make that happen. But if we believe in facts and we believe in using the resources of this country to their highest and best use, there's no other place than Huntsville, Alabama for Space Command.
I agree with that. All right. Well, listen, Mr. Attorney General Steve Marshall, thank you so much for your time. We're going to be tracking this. We'll have you back on again. There's an old saying, I know you know it, a week is a lifetime of politics. There's a lot of weeks between now and the primary, but the polls are showing you out front, and we appreciate your time today.
Thank you, Phil. Take care.
Take care. All right, listen, we're taking a break right now. We'll come back and I'll wrap that up. But listen, I'm going to tell you, you guys have got a deep bench. You got a deep bench for U.S. Senate. Most states would kill to have one of the candidates we have. We got 3 to pick from right now. Good Lord. We'll talk about it more in a minute. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back.
It was a huge issue to stop Saddam Hussein from firing Scuds into Israel. So we were putting Delta Force on the ground in Western Iraq to try to find these launchers. And then we actually found some ourselves, and I was fortunate enough to put the first rounds on one.
Did you really?
I did, yeah.
With an armed Black Hawk?
With an armed Black Hawk.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Take it out?
So in the end, they think it was a decoy, but there's a photo of it in this. I don't know if you've ever seen these books. Like there's an Army one, a Navy one, Air Force. There's a SOCOM book. They're big format, like coffee table books. Yeah. In that book for SOCOM, there's a picture of my FLIR. If you look at that picture, I don't care who you are, you're not going to think that's a decoy. I mean, so FLIR is forward-looking infrared. For those who don't know what that acronym is, it's heat sensitive, basically. You can see heat on the wheels. I mean, it looks real. I mean, this thing absolutely looks real. And then you can see the minigun rounds sort of hitting on the way up into the but it didn't blow up. And we had a Scud expert back at the operations center when we got back, and he said, "You're really lucky it didn't blow up, because if it blows up, it's like the space shuttle going off, because there's so much propellant in there."
Oh, wow.
And we were pretty close. We were probably within 200 meters when we broke.
Oh, wow.
Break meaning you're diving, you're shooting, and then you break. And he said if you would have blown it up, it probably would have taken you out. So, okay, glad it
take
didn't
that
blow
all
up.
day long.
Yeah.
you still get credit though, right?
I guess so. Yeah.
And then there's Operation Gothic Serpent, which is heading into Somalia. Became known as the Battle of Mogadishu. A lot of your book, of course, and rightfully so, is focused on that mission. I want to dive into that for a bit, because that's the one. I mean, your situation in the Battle of Mogadishu took you out of running in obscurity in terms of your personal name, and thrust you into the eyes of the entire world. And I remember that. I remember when that happened. It was amazing to see it. But for those who don't recall, Operation Gothic Serpent, the intro into Mogadishu for the United States actually started under George H.W. Bush.
Correct.
But it transitioned in early '93 when Clinton took office.
Correct.
So you were there during Clinton's era, correct?
Yes.
All right. So Clinton took office in January '93. Task Force Ranger is the name of the U.S. presence, I guess, at the airfield there. And then in October, was it October 3rd, I think? October 3rd, '93, launched what many people just refer to as Black Hawk Down, because that's the book and the movie. And I guess code word Irene was what launched the mission, right?
It was.
Which my secretary downstairs at the law firm, her name is Irene. I
Oh,
told her
really?
one day, I said, I don't know if you're aware of the use of your name in modern pop culture. And she went, I've never heard that. So anyway.
And actually, that's my character that says it in the movie.
That is your character. Yeah. And I want to talk about the movie and all that too at some point, just to get your thoughts on it. But Rangers have the mission of going in and securing some high value targets, or securing the scene so that Delta can secure the high value targets. You're part of the flight in. Who were you bringing in, by the way?
So I was the flight lead, which means I'm responsible for my whole flight of aircraft of the Ranger blocking force. So it's basically split into two pieces. We had the assault force, which is where the Delta guys are. They're primarily on little birds.
Yeah.
And they're going to go in first because they want the element of surprise. They want to be, busting doors down before, with limited amount of time to react, right? If you put the blocking force in first, then you bring the assault force in, the bad guys have a little bit more time to react. So they're going in first. We're right behind them. So as soon as their birds pull out, we're moving in, and I had 4 Blackhawks that made up the blocking force, plus 2 spare attack little birds, plus the search and rescue bird. So we're all coming in together on the second wave, basically. And we just set up a box. I mean, all they want is put a Ranger platoon on each corner, and the purpose is twofold. One, keep more bad guys from getting in, and then obviously we call them leakers, keeping the people you're after from getting out. And that all went pretty smoothly, even though we'd done it 6 times before. This was the 7th mission.
Right.
And, we had tremendous success. We had captured, I think, 27 people on a list of 50, taken no casualties of any significance. We didn't lose any birds. I mean, it was all going pretty well. There were 3-day missions and 3-night missions leading up to that. And this 7th mission is a day mission.
And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. Just saving the world one soundbite at a time. All right, so I got to spend a minute sort of capping off what I just said a moment ago right before the break. So we have some major races around the nation at the state level. Marsha Blackburn, U.S. Senator, very conservative, has announced that she is now running for governor of Tennessee. Bill Lee stepping out of office is term limited. Of course, Tommy Tuberville is doing the same thing. So there's 2. I mean, side by side, you got Tennessee and Alabama both of their senior senators are now stepping out to go run for governor. Both are going to make great governors. I really do believe that Tuberville is pretty much the anointed one. He's going to be it. I think that's fine because he's the one that I want. The first time I heard he was going to run, I thought if he gets in, the game's over because his name ID. And there's some people that I love that were thinking about it, who recognized that he had all the momentum and they stepped aside. So that being said, Tuberville's the man. He's going to be the governor. Marsha Blackburn is polling so high right now. I can't imagine how things could shift. And if somebody had dirt on her, they would have brought it up in one of her Senate races a long time ago anyway. So I suspect you're going to see Governor Blackburn and Governor Tuberville. That's all good. But what it leaves is 2 major U.S. Senate seats. And listen, every state is the same. Every state gets 2 senators. Doesn't matter what size. Every state gets 2 senators. So this is an equal playing field opportunity for a red state of Alabama and a red state of Tennessee to elect another red U.S. senator. And that's a big deal. The bench we have right now in Alabama may be one of the most incredible benches I have ever seen. Now, I will tell you, when Katie Britt ran, Senator Britt, when she ran, that was a great bench. That was her, that was Mo Brooks and Mike Durant. We kind of have that again right now. Think about it. What we have right now is a very strong, well-known name. Like Katie Britt was pretty well known before. Well, I would say the same thing about Attorney General Steve Marshall. Very well known, very well respected. At the same time, we have Congressman Barry Moore, extremely conservative, member of the Freedom Caucus. Well, in that last race with Britt, we had Congressman Mo Brooks, very conservative, member of the Freedom Caucus. In this race, we have Jared Hudson, former Navy SEAL, really dynamic individual, fights human trafficking now in his post-SEAL career. And then in that one, we had Mike Durant, who was a special operations aviator. I mean, it's a little bit mirror image here. But what it also means is, wow, what great choices you got. So I'm just going to tell you, don't lay down on this one. Well, I tell you what, don't lay down on any of them. Don't ever lay down. I don't care if somebody's running for dog catcher. Find out who your favorite candidate is and get behind them. But right now, you're looking at Alabama has a chance to put somebody up, and you've got some dynamic choices. Attorney General Steve Marshall is a conservative policy warrior. Barry Moore, conservative policy warrior. Jared Hudson, conservative policy. Listen, you guys have got to get into, and we did a major podcast with Jared Hudson, probably a month and a half before we even knew he was going to run. So we had that one in the can already. But if you want to see it, go to the Just Right podcast that we did with Jared Hudson and just look it up that way. You can find it on our website, rightsidemedia.org, or you can go to our YouTube channel, the Just Right podcast with Jared Hudson. He's running for U.S. Senate now. We did an hour and a half. It was an hour and a half, 2 hours?
Hour and a half.
Hour and a half with the dude. I mean, hour and a half with the guy. You get to know his heart, man. You get to find out details of his life. We need to do that with every candidate. That'd be amazing. But if you want to know the candidates, you can, because these are all public figures who have amazing records. Each one is slightly different than the other. Each one of them brings strengths. And I'm going to tell you right now, we got a deep bench, Alabama, a deep bench. It's just nothing but good. All right, we're going to come back from this break. We're going to talk about Trump and Putin. So you guys stay tuned. We'll wrap up the day. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back.
Which created some risk factors that we knew about, but not my call.
Part of the job.
But yeah, the commander makes the call.
Right.
They're within tolerance, I guess you could say, and when we go, and then all hell broke loose.
Yeah, it got crazy on the ground pretty quick, didn't it?
It did.
I know we had one Ranger injured on the fast rope end, and that created a scene. And then I guess the all call went out, and it seemed like everybody in Mogadishu had an AK-47, and they all ran to the scene.
And that was their strategy, which we found out later. They actually had set up a system where once they knew where we were hitting the target, and again, they learned this over time, right? When I talk about this, I try to compare it to sports, right? If you keep running the same play, the defense is going to adapt to that play, right? They understand, okay, this formation means this is what they're going to do, so here's how we counter that. Well, it works the same way in the military. And so having done it 6 times, they obviously understood, okay, the helicopters all go to a target. That's where, they're going to put people on the ground. They're going to try to apprehend folks. If we can pin them in there, then, we might have some chance of
Plus, they were blocking roads, so the ground convoy was having trouble.
Yep. So we found out after that was their strategy. Once they knew where the target was, they were all going to close on it, and it worked pretty well, actually.
Well, the Blackhawks stayed on station. In fact, one thing I've never known is what was the purpose of y'all? If there's going to be a ground convoy for the exfil, what was the purpose of y'all remaining on station like you did?
So we kept 2 attack Little Birds and 2 Blackhawks over the target for fire support. So the Little Birds, they've got miniguns and rockets,
right?
And they're going to be slightly further out in terms of their restricted fire areas. Where the Blackhawks were being used, and honestly, hindsight being 2020, it wasn't a great way to do this, and it's not being done anymore, at least not in urban environments. They were being used for both the miniguns, which I don't think they used the miniguns a lot, but they had snipers on board. So it's a great stable platform for the shooter, but it's a 50-something foot long target for people on the ground that have weapons. Mm-hmm. And you can't fly fast, because if you're flying fast, your shooter can't hit anything. So the speed is less than what you would fly if you were, just trying to avoid fire. We're probably flying 50 knots, right? Which may seem fast to someone on the ground, but that's really slow for an aircraft. Mm-hmm. And it makes the aircraft much more vulnerable to ground fire.
And how far above ground were you?
Very low. I mean, the Blackhawks had to stay 150 feet and below.
Okay.
And the Little Birds, I think, were 300 feet and above, which worked out great. I mean, we'd done it, at that point, probably 50 times counting rehearsals, and never had any close calls in terms of mid-airs.
Were you just flying racetracks?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we had, when I was in Baghdad in 2004, I can remember being on a cordon search mission in Sadr City area, and they had changed all the TTPs because the racetracks got predictable, apparently, for ground fire. And so they were flying figure eights, and they were also altitude changes. And they had gone through all kinds of machinations to try and make sure the bad guys on the ground didn't have a predictable means of assessing, where the flight was going to be.
Right. Now, my flight, because I'm not one of these 4 aircrafts over the target. I've already gone in, and I put my guys on the ground. But I took my flight north of the city for exactly what you're talking about. And one of the guys criticized me. He said, "Hey, we need to stay closer to the target so we can see what's going on." And I'm like, "No, we're a contingency force at this point. I'm going north of the city where there's no threat, because if we're just doing circles up there, why would I want to be right here in the middle of this fight and put our entire flight at risk?" And it was obviously the right decision to do what I decided to do. So I've got my flight, and I'm north of the city. Now, north of the city is not a long distance. It's probably a mile.
Right.
And we're up there orbiting, basically on standby. I mean, when you got assets like that, if you could keep them on hand as a ground force, keep them on hand, right? Because you never know when you might need some kind of helo support. And then I get called back in when the first Blackhawk gets shot down.
Well, that's what I was going to say. So you were flying what, Super 6-4?
Right.
And Super 6-1, your friend Donovan, right?
Right.
So he's the first one to go down.
Hey, all you Rightside ruffians out there, you are listening to Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right.
And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. Just covering down on some major ground across the southeast U.S. of A. Y'all, I'm talking about this show. This show. I mean, it goes like Huntsville back over to Chattanooga. I'm talking about Tuscaloosa back over to Gadsden. I mean, all the way down to that loveliest little village on the plains we call Auburn. Is right across the line from there to what we now call, once again, Fort Benning. And then big old patches of North Georgia and Mississippi all thrown in just for good measure. And that's just the radio. Then there's all y'all out there in the whole wide world going to the World Wide Web, live streaming the show, looking in the studio right now, live streaming on places like X and YouTube and Facebook and Rumble, and our website, rightsidemedia.org. And then all you podcasters who catch it after the fact, it means the world to us. No matter where you catch this show, I will just say, multiple times per show, I try to make sure you understand how thankful we are for you. I try to mention where we are, but by saying that, I'm saying you, the listeners, are there. And the fact that you're there is the only reason why we do this. Thank you very much. That being said, let me jump into a topic. I'm going to close out the show. This was not one of the dippers for the day, but I got to address what's about to happen, which is significant historically. My own father, by the way, JP's grandfather, was engaged in giving feedback and input to the Reagan-Gorbachev summit at Reykjavik. It's a major deal that helped bring down the Iron Curtain in many ways. And I'm watching to see what's going to happen with Trump-Putin this week. Does it feel historic to that level? I don't know, but I will tell you this: it's the first time that that Putin has been on U.S. soil since 2015. So we're talking 10 years. And they're meeting at Joint Base Elmendorf-Richardson, which is in Alaska, in Anchorage. Trump's going to be arriving there tomorrow. My understanding is their first meeting occurs sometime around 3 o'clock tomorrow afternoon, local time, and that it's just going to be the two presidents and two interpreters, and that's it. They're not having the big, line the table with everybody, dog and pony show. There will probably be some dog and pony. They can't have two presidents of their major countries like that and not have some dog and pony. But the first thing they're going to do, and Trump is very prone to this. If you notice, Trump, of course, the art of the deal, he's used to making deals. Trump believes that he can get one-on-one and actually make things happen better very often. That being said, what do we expect out of tomorrow? There is talk right now that Ukraine is going to be asked to give up ground. And I understand Ukraine's angst in that. Keep in mind, Ukraine has already lost the entire Crimean Peninsula. They did. During the Obama era, they lost the entire Crimean Peninsula. It was just annexed and gone the next day. And that apparently wasn't enough for Putin, and so he wanted more. Let us not mistake the idea in any way that this was just about NATO being on his next door. This was not, I have to do this for the safety of my own nation. No, Putin just really wanted what Ukraine had. Ukraine is the breadbasket of Eastern Europe. Ukraine has got more nuclear power than anybody else in Europe. And I'm talking about energy power. Ukraine has rich natural resources. In fact, you may recall, we heard most recently, they discovered a massive deposit of rare earth minerals. Where are those rare earth minerals? In the Donbass region, which is along the eastern rim of Ukraine in the major fighting zones. There's a lot there that Putin wants. And yet, for the last several years, I will say this, you got to admire the Ukrainians. They have been putting the wood to them. Except, here's the problem. There has been no milestone. There has been no plan. There has been no phase line. There has been no markers on the wall. What are the high water marks? We don't know. You know why? Because Biden foreign policy was zero. Absolutely zero. Biden's foreign policy was a checkbook. That's all it was. If you wonder for a second why members of the conservative right have lost the love for the war in Ukraine and want to see it over with, it's because Biden spent us into oblivion and also, oh, by the way, got us down to the fact that we are depleting our own resources militarily in order to prop up the fight. Do I want Russia to win? Absolutely not. They don't deserve it. Do I want them to gain territory? They don't deserve it. But that being said, this war is going to have to come to an end, or there will have to be a major shift in how the support for them goes. Some of the coups that we have seen most recently, I use that term loosely, but some of the shift in the dynamics that we've seen most recently are the Trump administration doing things that the Biden administration never did. Biden just said, how much do you need? We're in it for the long haul. Empty stare. Which way do I leave to exit the stage? Does somebody have pudding? I mean, that was the Biden administration's plan. Now what we're saying is, hey, NATO members, how about Western Europe? How about the rest of Eastern Europe? How about Poland? How about all of y'all that have been supplying some measure of assistance? How about you pony up more, because the United States is on the far side of the world and we should not have to be carrying this fight. We can provide, but here's what we're going to do. We will sell weapon systems to NATO countries. You guys decide if you want to sell them to Ukraine. We're not going to keep just giving stuff away. Javelin missiles made right here in Alabama have been taking out Russian tanks now for the last 4 years. But that being said, it can't go on 3 years. It can't go on forever. Trump is right to have this meeting. There are those who are vilifying him on the left for daring to meet with Putin. You're soft on Putin. Does anybody think that soft on Putin is making sure that more weapon systems are now available to the Ukrainians? No. Does anybody think that soft on Putin is the threat of the sanctions that he's going to put on Russia if they don't come to a terms real soon? No. And oh, by the way, this is what you do. When you're a statesman, when you have the ability to actually be a mediator, you don't sit outside the door and write checks and slide them under the door and hope things get better. You actually go there and you get in the mix. That's what leaders do. And so what we're watching right now is Trump doing what Trump does best. He's never been afraid to walk into a boardroom. He's never been afraid to walk into a stiff meeting. He's never been afraid to balance the budget. He's never been afraid to go down a road that nobody else would go. And he's going there. He's going to meet tomorrow with Putin. Some are saying, why is Zelensky not there? Why is Zelensky? Zelensky will be there. In fact, we understand that he spoke to Zelensky on the phone, I think, yesterday. So it's not like this is just being done just to give Putin his own voice. No, he's hearing from Putin. And JP, you were reading me earlier that he's talking about meeting number 2 on this.
Well, he said that that's the purpose of this meeting. It's to set up I'll just read his quote. He said, this meeting sets up the second meeting. The second meeting is going to be very important because that's going to be a meeting where they actually make a deal. And then he said, the second meeting will be important. It's like a chess game. He said, but there's a 25% chance that this meeting will not be a successful meeting and there won't be a second meeting. So essentially he's saying, this should just lead to a second meeting where they actually, put pen to paper and make a deal, hopefully.
It's an icebreaker.
But like he said, there's a 25% chance, in his own words, of Putin not liking anything and then nothing getting done at all. And it's just not a good meeting. So,
and don't forget, I think it was with North Korea, but, or maybe China. Trump has gotten up and walked out of meetings before.
Yeah.
When his last term, it was not unheard of for him to be in negotiations, think they weren't going well or weren't being done in good faith, and decided to go ahead and just, you know what, we're out of here. And literally leave a day or two early and leave the other side sitting at the table going, oh, crap, that just happened.
And I mean, Putin himself is the one that said he wanted to do a summit. So I don't know. Hopefully that means he's open to talking, or maybe that means, I don't know. I guess I'm a bit more optimistic that this can actually lead to a second meeting if Putin's the one that wanted it. But at the same time, you never know. Like, Putin could not like what Trump's saying, and then they're nope. That's it. But I don't know.
Let's talk about logistics too. Trump did not act like a envoy and fly to see Putin. He's got Putin coming to America.
That, I think that is a big point. I know we talked about it yesterday. I think that's a big part of that's not little.
No, it's not little at all. And like I said a moment ago, Putin hasn't been on U.S. soil now in 10 years. But the fact that Putin is coming to a meeting on a U.S. military base, I mean, we're not even talking about the White House. He's actually going to be at Joint Base. I believe that's where the 11th Airborne is stationed. So this has got some visual effect to it. There's some eye candy, I'm sure, involved. There's also going to be the sense of things that, in essence, Putin came to Trump, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So we'll see how it goes. But I think right now, this is the thing that has to happen. And this war won't be ended without it.
I think that's part of the art of the deal thing, too. Like when Trump went to Scotland and then hosted the people in Scotland at his own property in Scotland. So like there's a hosting aspect to it that I think Trump knows is important. So Trump, like, I agree with exactly what you said. Trump being the person that's hosting Putin is important.
Wait, does he own a golf course in Alaska?
Can you imagine if he went to Russia and he hosted Putin at his property in Russia or something? Like, I'm going to go to Russia and then host you. Yeah.
I'll call the staff. Tell them to give you a good room.
Yeah.
Make you a good rate. Well, that's tomorrow. That is happening tomorrow. President Trump leaves out first thing in the morning. The delegations, of course, each side has their own security and all the things it takes to do. But the reality is the first meeting is designed to be small, rather intimate setting, 2 men and their interpreters. We'll see where it goes. In the meantime, where we're going is to a break. We'll take a break right now. We'll come right back, get some of your text messages and close out the day. Tomorrow, by the way, I'm headed to CNN. It looks like I'm going to be up in Washington, D.C. myself to be on CNN tomorrow night. I'll stay tuned on that one. I'll give you more details when I know them. But bottom line is, still planning on doing the show, at least from a secret bunker in Washington, D.C. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Cliff Walcott.
Yeah, and Cliff Walcott. And then you were, I think you were directed in to replace him.
Correct.
Okay.
Now, we didn't have a sniper on board, so we're going in simply to use our minigun down close to try to provide fire support for the guys on the ground. That's what our mission has now become, which that was not our mission prior to that. But again, you adapt and you do what needs to be done to try to help the force that you're supporting.
And you've got a full crew?
4, yeah. 2 crew chiefs and 2 pilots.
All right, so Super 6-1 is down. What do you remember about Super 6-1, hearing it over the air, and recognizing that one of them's already down?
Yeah, I mean, I've always called myself an eternal optimist. It never in my wildest dreams would I have thought that Cliff and Donovan would be dead. I just assumed that, they took a round, they're going down, they're going to land the aircraft somewhere, we'll get them recovered, and we'll all go debrief this thing when this is over. But obviously now we've lost a bird, which is the first time that this happens for us. There had been another Black Hawk shot down by 10th Mountain Division previously with some fatalities, but it wasn't our unit. And it, I've always used the phrase, big sky, little bullet. You don't think it can necessarily happen to you until there's enough volume of fire where it's going to happen to you. And there's also a search and rescue bird shot down in the middle of all this that then heightens that even more, because now they've shot down 2 aircraft in about 5 minutes, and we're going into this fray. This is getting real, really fast. And, I remember telling the crew chiefs, because I've got control of their guns from up front. So I've got an arming switch. And I armed the guns, and I said, okay, you're armed, but we got friendlies all over the ground down here. So we can't go in here and just blasting away. When we see bad guys, we got to get situationally aware so we know where all of our forces are before you start launching 6,000 rounds a minute downrange.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, in an urban environment, I don't want to say it's impossible, but right on the rooftops, it's really difficult to sort all that out. Because first of all, they're all taking cover. So, they're not standing out there waving at you. They're all taking cover. So trying to figure out where everybody was would have probably taken us a while. In the end, we only made it around 3 times when we got nailed by an RPG.
So RPG to the tail rotor, right?
Right.
In the movie, and later I want to get your thoughts on the movie, like I said, but in the movie, there's a scene where you took the RPG to the tail rotor, but initially you thought it was going to be okay until you started getting some play in the pedals and stuff like that. So what were your first thoughts, and how did that I mean?
Well, I knew we were hit, and I always tell people, if you want to know what it feels like, drive too fast in a parking lot and hit a speed bump. That's what it felt like. It felt like a jolt to the airframe, because you don't see it. Usually what they were doing is they let us fly by, and then they emerge from the doorway and shoot. So you're probably not going to see the launch. The crew chief might see it, depending if they're looking in the right direction. And then the reason they hit both of us in the tail is they're not leading us enough. So that 50-knot magical speed was just ballistically perfect for them to shoot at I'm sure they were aiming for center mass.
Which the crazy thing is, an RPG is not usually designed to take out aircraft.
No, but if you fire enough of them, eventually, they say they fired 150 at us on that mission. Now, not just at me, but on that mission. That's how many RPGs.
I'd never heard that. Wow.
Yeah. I mean, they went all in. They thought, we want to bring down a helicopter, and they were successful. So anyway, back to your question. Initially, I feel like I hit a speed bump, knew we were hit. I can see the airfield. It's 2 miles ahead of us. And looking in the cockpit, everything's okay. Controls were all responding. But what had happened was the gearbox had been blown apart, and it's like a transmission in your car, right? If you blow your transmission apart,
you ain't going anywhere.
Not for very long. Once those
gears
run without oil for any period of time, they're going to self-destruct, and that's what happened. And then when the tail rotor left the aircraft, again, that's impossible to describe. If you haven't experienced it, I can't describe it. I mean, it's this violent spin of the aircraft, out of control.
What do they call that? Counter rotation or something, where you're trying to restore stability?
Well, the tail rotor is there to counter the torque of the main rotor system. Again, if you think about a drill, people are familiar with that. You pull the trigger, you can feel it want to turn. That's torque. So the same thing's happening to a helicopter, obviously with a lot more force. The tail rotor is mounted horizontally to push against that force that's wanting the airframe to spin. Once that tail rotor's gone,
And we are back. Phil Williams, Right Side Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Just making common sense like a superpower. Yeah, pulling pins on truth grenades. Hey, real quick, I got to read you a text from the lovely Charlene regarding, listen, when I met her, she's been more politically astute than me for years. She was a political science major in college. Her hero was like Henry Kissinger. So that's who I'm married to. She just said, Putin is a narcissist that is loving the attention this meeting is giving him, but she does believe he is shaking in his boots over the impending sanctions. I think she's accurate. I think she's right. He is by the way, nobody, president or not, goes riding bareback on horses and having pictures taken of him that is not a narcissist. So she nailed that. Anyway, there's that. I got several text messages. I probably won't be able to get to them. Tom with all the kids, though, checks in. He says, Tom with all the kids in Huntsville says, sometimes I worry about the future of our country, but listening to you on days like today gives me hope. Thank you, brother. I didn't realize what I was going to read, but now that I'm very thankful for that text. Thank you. Let me run to the phones right now because our favorite truck driving man, Jeff Rowe from Indiana, is on the line. Hey, buddy, how are you?
I'm doing real good. The traffic's not doing good, but I am.
Good. So you're thankful.
But yes. So you're going to wind up in D.C. tomorrow for CNN.
It would appear so, yes.
Well, what you need to do,
uh-oh,
you need to stop by the Subway shop before you go in and take you a foot-long sub sandwich in there and say, look, would you ask the liberals on the panel if they'd like to ban your sandwich because it's an assault sandwich?
If I can steal that line tomorrow night, I'll have to find a way to also give you credit because that's pretty funny.
I think you should because it's like everything you use, assault weapons, assault this, assault whatever. You can go in with an assault sandwich, and if you take your right side bulletproof glass in there, I'm not sure you could get that in there with an actual foot.
It's been disarmed though. It's already been fired. So
yeah, but a bullet's a bullet, man. It might come out of there and hit somebody. If you threw the glass at somebody, if it stuck in them, they'd be shot, I guess.
Do you know I actually brought home a Spectre gunship is a overhead gun platform that flies over your. Anyway, I brought home a Spectre gunship 105 millimeter shell from Afghanistan. Customs made me drill a hole in it and also wash it out so they could prove that it could never be reloaded. Like I was going to go home and reload a 105 shell. But anyway.
It'd be expensive to put that much gunpowder in that can.
I'm saying, absolutely. Well, I tell you what, we've talked about a lot of things today, mostly the Democrat socialism. We talked about, things on the Trump-Putin thing. What are your thoughts, brother?
Well, in New York City, more Zohan, talking about getting elected and everything. Is he going to put up an internment camp for the Jews and treat them like the Palestinians or something? I mean, he's got to have some of these people vote for him because, as I read up, in the 5 boroughs, there's over 1 million Jews in New York City.
Yeah.
So if he's got to have some of these people, if 1 million people vote against him, and well, I guess the trouble is they're going to split the vote so many different ways. It wouldn't take too many idiots to get him in there. That's the trouble.
It really is amazing. I mean, I don't know how anyone of the Jewish faith could possibly vote for this guy. He has been everything that they should be fearful of. And I mean, I was in New York City for another CNN gig most recently. And, it's very apparent that the Jewish community is much stronger there than what I might see in my hometown in Alabama. You can see folks walking around with their yarmulke on their, I think it's called a yarmulke on their head. And the, even Hasidic Jews. And I don't know how they could possibly feel good about the fact that he might be their next mayor.
Yeah. I mean, I almost want him to be elected just to teach them a lesson. and show them how bad things can actually get and destroy the city, basically. And, when all the people move out, because that's what's going to happen. I mean, if he gets elected, anybody with any intelligence whatsoever and the people that he hates, which are anybody with any money, is going to leave.
And the funny thing is, he's rich himself. He comes from an extremely wealthy family. He lives off his parents. He even said the reason why he could run for office was because he knew his parents would cover his expenses. Like what? So he's like a trust fund baby.
For you, not for me. That's how socialism works, and everything. I'm talking about everybody else, but me. I'm the elitist here. I've got to be in charge and have to be taken care of.
Well, we'll wait and see how it goes. But you know what? I don't want him elected because I feel like the rest of the nation will have to bail New York out if he gets elected. That's the problem. It'll all be on our meal ticket. They'll run things in the ground and then want us to bail them out.
With the bench they have there, though, I'm not sure he ain't maybe. I don't know if any of them is going to be any good.
Can you imagine? When did I ever think that I'd see the day that I'd be like, oh, please let Cuomo or Eric Adams get elected? That's kind of where we are right now. The lesser of all the evils. But all right, brother, I'm coming up on time. I'm going to get a few text messages, but you be safe on the road, my man.
All right. Good luck tomorrow and take that sandwich, bud.
Hey, and by the way, I know you're going on vacation, so you guys have an amazing time. All right.
What's that?
I said, I know you're going on vacation, so you guys have an amazing time.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Appreciate
See you, brother. Bye. Get a few quick text messages. John from Huntsville has the grades in. He says JP and Phil both get an A++ for their equally brilliant performances, which means today's winner with an A++ for his perfect performance is Steve Marshall, the Attorney General. Congratulations. Keep up the good work. By the way, JP, I'm looking forward to an awesome sports segment tomorrow. Yes, indeedy. David from Taft, Tennessee says, need a man on the street to interview those Jewish folks in New York City and see how they're voting. I agree, man.
Unfortunately, there already are, and you'd be surprised.
Really?
Yeah.
Are they saying we're in for Mondani?
Yeah. At least the ones I've seen. I don't know if there's been one specifically of only Jewish folks, but I've seen man on the street interviews with people in New York City and some more Jewish, and they were still voting for him. So
I do not understand this.
This is a guy, by the way, he said who would arrest Netanyahu if he came into New York City. So, yeah.
Yeah. Chris from Athens says, back to Butters and Lee segment. He said, Alabama does not want to get rid of any tax. They say we have the lowest property tax, but don't tell everyone we nickel and dime everyone for everything else. It's funny how we have so much money saved up, but the schools are still overcrowded. Teachers are underpaid and overworked, don't get compensation like the rest of us. It's going to come a time when they have to pay better or we'll have the worst education system in the nation. Chris, the problem with what you just said is it's not about the money. It's about the quality. All right. You've got zero competition. You've got major tenure issues. You've got a teachers union that sucks. And all those things have kept things in. I will tell you right now, we upped teacher salaries while I was in office, and we did a lot to bring in other additional incentives. That's not the issue. It's never about money. It's about quality and about competency. All right. That's an amazing day. You guys, listen, I'll be doing remote stuff with you tomorrow. In the meantime, do not forget, there's more of us than there are of them. God is still very much on his throne. Y'all stay in the fight. We'll see you tomorrow.